Is it on? Yeah. Okay, all right, bye.
Sorry.
Please stand for the pledge. Or are we missing? No, she has about I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The village and town of Newport boards humbly acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Munsee, Esopus, and Lenape people. The Indian Removal Act of 1830 forced the people to relocate to inhospitable territory far from the bountiful valley and mountains we inhabit today. The village and town further acknowledge that much of the physical structure of our village and town was built by enslaved Africans who labored as the property of their owners until 1827 on this very land. We acknowledge and honor the contributions, resilience, and accomplishments of the BIPOC community, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, who have overcome historic injustice to inform our past and inspire our future. The village and town of New Paltz encourage everyone to learn more about the contributions and sacrifices made by the Indigenous people and enslaved Africans by visiting these sites. If you have resources that you believe should be included here, please contact us. Thank you.
Thank you, Stevie. So, we have we put together a wild agenda for tonight. So, I think here's my suggested run of show for the evening. Because it depends on how many people comment, how much we will get through basically, because we have a public hearing and then a bunch of meetings, right? So my suggestion is first we'll invite Dr. Scott Minkoff, from the Benjamin Center to help give us some framing and some more information to ground tonight, talk about consolidation and have the boards talk first for a little bit. Don't worry, not holding off public hearing too much, but still need to reflect from last time. And then continue the public hearing. I have a bunch of ground rules to kind of cover too to help frame things. Once everyone feels heard for tonight on consolidations, public hearing, then I suggest, because I know folks are here to also speak about housing issues, to get to some just general public comment. And if it's already running long at that point, then I suggest we move the agenda items to the special meeting that we had both legally noticed for tomorrow night, same time, same place. Does that sound cool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to let the public speak first and then have Dr. Minkoff give his presentation so that he can respond to some of these things in real time. Because it feels like, we get the presentation, then the public speaks, and they don't really get to hear a response from one of the drafters of our JCA. So I would like to. You can respond afterwards, right? I mean, you can.
That's up to you, I
Yes.
would say, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I would invite Scott to stick around. It's no pressure, but
I will stick around as long as consolidation is being discussed.
thank you. If you could do that, that would, I think, be really good. But we didn't have a lot of, not everybody spoke after that meeting. And I know I, for one, had to watch it 2 more times since to, kind of figure out edits and whatnot that I would like to make. And I know I can't be the only one. So I know I've been hearing from people that they're not feeling heard. So we could cut it to quick presentation from Scott, quick go around from the board, then hear from everybody, and then make sure, we continue from there. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So first, so Scott, come on up. Feel free to hang out in that chair as much as you want. You're
Sure.
part of the team, who knows what's going on here, and take it away.
The transcript on?
Yes, I believe so. I think it's already set up, and then we have to pull it from the cloud after the fact.
Looks like
Yeah.
it's taking it for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Not closed caption?
Well, if the meeting is being recorded, then.
It was part of how the meetings were set up.
Yeah.
So it goes into a cloud folder for a few days. Yeah. Thanks, Kitty. All right, so take it away, Scott.
Okay, let's, all right, so first off, thank you for having me here as you sort of work through this, very important and, to some degree complicated, process for New Paltz. That's incredibly important for both the village and town and how it proceeds from here. For those who don't know me in the audience, my name is Scott Minkoff. I'm a professor at SUNY New Paltz, and the director of the Benjamin Center for Public Policy. And I have a long background in local politics, research, and local government, and in fact, local service arrangements and things like that. And so I'm happy to be able to be part of this process by which, we're trying our best to both translate the JCA and the bigger picture context of this to the community. The Benjamin Center and myself don't take a position on the JCA. We do, I have been in the steering committee meetings, full disclosure, but it has not really been my job to craft this. That job really was done by LaBerge, which is a local government consulting company in New York State. I have a pretty short presentation for you here. Is it okay for me to ask for a quick show of hands? Is that appropriate?
Go for it, yeah.
How many of you were at the last hearing? Okay, good. That's really helpful to know. So, first off, I was not at the last hearing. My colleague KT Tobin was at the last hearing, sitting in this seat, in the middle school, but in this metaphorical seat. So I just want you to take note of the fact that some of you were here and heard a version, not the exact same presentation, but a version of this last week, and some of you don't, or didn't. So just be cognizant that for some of you, this might be a little bit of repeat and some first time. And I also want to note that we have the one-pagers are all on the table over there. The Benjamin Center has produced one-page documents that overview various topics that may or may not be, and the board, but they've also learned. So I'm gonna do a short presentation here, and I'm gonna start. Okay, hold on. Now I gotta give it to me.
Is it possible to angle that so people in the audience can see it?
That thing,
Okay.
yeah.
Sherry.
I did some furniture rearranging for this one for request.
Okay. I think that's fine. Is that better?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so, first off, there's been one public hearing so far, I can look at this screen. And, today you're at the July 15th public hearing, there'll be another public hearing July 29th. You and other people in the community can also submit comments, written comments via email. That information is available here and on the consolidation website, which is newpaltzconsolidation.com, where all of this stuff also lives. So this is the process by which these two boards get a lot of feedback, and they actually have the opportunity under the state law to incorporate that feedback as they sort of see fit. Mayor and Supervisor, do you want to say a quick thing about how that stuff is going to get incorporated real quick before I move forward?
I think you got it.
Yeah, if you miss anything, I'll fill in, but basically, this was my plan, was getting us all talking and then making.
No,
sure
I
to
meant
start-
like,
oh.
sorry, like changes to the JCA. Like you guys can incorporate them over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's
And you
the
will share
plan.
them. And then there'll be a final vote on a revised JCA based on the input of the board, based on.
Yeah, and definitely, LaBerge has been super helpful with kind of like enumerating, like listing out changes as they've been happening. So we'll be able to share like a track changes, like list,
Right, we'll have there'll be a red line version. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so I want to start substantively by saying what consolidation is and what consolidation is not. So the first two slides there are what is consolidation. Consolidation is a structural change. The two governments become one government. The incorporated village, if consolidation proceeds, will go away. and the town will remain. It's not as if a third new government appears. It is the old town stays the old town. It just absorbs the village. What does that mean? One of the things that means is that current village services, employees, assets, and obligations all transfer over to the town under this process. The former village would then become the hamlet of New Paltz, which is not a, which is more just a boundary for designating service provision districts, which we can talk about in a little bit if you want. That way, the village residents can continue to receive and pay for as appropriate various services. It's a fiscal change, right? The former village levy gets spread out across the larger townwide tax base. This will, and we can talk more about this, estimates, if you're using the most recent completed budget, well, or one budget ago, actually, this will reduce village tax burden about 12 to 14%. And with CETC aid, which I'll talk more, the expectation is it would provide a baseline reduction to town outside village tax rates as well of 2 to 4%. Now, when you spread a village tax all over the town, your immediate thought might be, well, isn't that going to raise the tax rate of people out of town? And it may, that is a possibility, but the CETC is designed from the state to help deal with that. And the fiscal modeling involved here, based on the previous thing, suggests that the overall tax levy goes down for across the board. The CETC gets applied, and that actually leads to a small tax reduction for town outside village voters. It's also a governance change, right? You move from one you move from one village board and one town board to just one town board, and all the associated committees and commissions that go along with that, right? So village processes would go, village board would go away. I have to say, just, you know, that is a very difficult thing for any government to do, is to vote itself out of existence, right? So there's a certain amount of, you know, thought that really needs to go into it. A couple more things on what consolidation is. It is not a single event. And I think this might be a source of some confusion for folks. It is a process. If these two boards decide to move forward with a consolidation vote, and they need to vote on the JCA to do that, right? It would then go to a November referendum. That referendum itself would decide whether the town and the village consolidate or not, but it leaves open a huge number of questions, actually, and that's a really important part of this. The joint consolidation agreement sets out a framework for thinking about consolidation, and it also makes some fairly strict suggestions for how it's going to be implemented, but it then actually becomes the responsibility of the town board to implement those suggestions, and it leaves a lot open as well. In fact, it creates committees aimed at filling in the gaps that any JCA under law probably wouldn't be able to produce, and sort of integrate those into whatever process pursues. That's if and only if the town and village decide to consolidate. And it's also really important to remember that if consolidation occurs, right, the town continues to exist as a government that is publicly accountable, right? So any decision that's made through this consolidation process, unless it's legally binding, and most of that stuff is having to do with state law about employees and debts and obligations, the future town board has all the normal responsibilities, obligations, and sort of authority that any town board would have for implementing this, you know, the consolidation. So what it is not, it's not a change to boundary or any property lines. That's an important thing to remember. Town lines will stay the same. Village lines will go away, but they will become hamlet lines. It's not a brand new government from scratch. It's not also an overnight wipe of existing rules and laws. State law says that village laws, ordinances, stuff remain in effect in the village until the town votes to change those, essentially. It is also, and this is super important, not a change into who pays for water or sewer. If there is a vote to consolidate, by law, this is a very clear law. Only those who receive water and sewer pay for water and sewer, both for the water, the sewage, and the infrastructure. So if you are a town outside village person and you are on well, you will stay on well, and you will not pay for water or sewer. It just, the village and town by law, well, the current village and the town by law cannot do that. So anybody who is concerned about sort of like, if the village goes away, and you live outside the village and you are unwell and you're worried about paying for new pipes in the village, you actually don't need to worry about that. State law is very clear that the town cannot make you pay for that stuff. It is strictly a user-based system. Okay, a couple pieces of terminology. For those who don't know, town outside village refers to this space right here. All the town outside the village. The hamlet will take the boundaries of the former village if there's consolidation. This is all ifs, as you know. The village line will also become a fire protection district line and a refuse district line, so that the town can continue to provide certain village services after consolidation, if that's what it, if consolidation occurs. Three other important pieces of vocabulary. One is, you'll hear tonight a lot of reference to a thing called the Joint Consolidation Agreement, or the JCA. The JCA is the legally required negotiated agreement between the town and village. It is the thing, it is now public, they can change it, revise it, and then ultimately it's August 5th, right? On August 5th, both of these boards will vote whether or not to essentially adopt that JCA and then send it to the town and village voters for a vote. Or I should say town outside village and village voters for a vote. The JCA outlines two periods that are a bit confusing. One is the names are sort of similar, right? Interim period, this is if consolidation is approved in November, this is the period for the certification of the referendum to the official consolidation day, which, if the JCA keeps it as is, will be January 1, 2028. The state basically says, please do it on January 1 if you're gonna do it. Transition period is the 2 years after the consolidation. So this is you've already consolidated, you voted to consolidate, you've officially consolidated, and now you have another 2-year period in which you have a sort of system for figuring out the integration of the old village government into the town systems. So it's notable that this is here because the joint consolidation agreement can and does not do everything that is necessary to complete the transition. Right? It becomes the responsibility of the town government to complete that transition. That includes creating committees, working groups, all the kinds of things you need to do, a government would need to do to make that transition successful, if it does get supported. Now, I have a few more things to go over, and then I'll turn it back over to you. I have a few things that I want to say that are sort of like, I think, helpful for understanding what is in the JCA and what it does and doesn't do. And then I have a few notes that sort of respond to some things that I saw in the reporting of the last meeting. So I don't think I'll do all of these just for time, okay? But I think the goal here is a simpler and more efficient government that gives every town resident one clear point of accountability and can make decisions, budget, and plan for the whole community at once. It is up to this town or village to make the choice about whether this is the right path to go for that, right? Maybe they're just wrong, right? But that is the goal, and I feel very confident in saying. Next, for consolidation to occur, both the town outside village and the village will need to separately vote for consolidation, right? That means the village has to have a majority and the town outside village has to have a separate majority. You can't have one without the other. If the village votes in favor and the town doesn't, or vice versa, no consolidation, right? 3, this consolidation process is different than the dissolution process that these boards, or really the village board, considered previously. A dissolution means the village only votes, town outside village doesn't, and if it passes, the village goes away. And then it's up to the town to figure things out. In a consolidation process, the two work together. In working together, you get the input of both the village and the town outside village residents in the process. And you get a agreement for how that looks. If you do dissolution, the village goes away and the village can make a recommendation to the town about how things should be, but it's not nearly as, concrete. And there's not necessarily buy-in from town outside village. In other words, the village can opt itself out of existence pretty much if it wants to. The consolidation process makes it a cooperative process. It also makes it a higher lift and a harder process. If consolidation occurs, New York State is expected to be providing approximately $1 million, or 1 million, really, not approximately, through the CETC, at least 70% of which must go to tax reduction. There's been a lot of sort of talk about whether or not the town can really expect this $1 million. Here's what I can tell you. The $1 million is determined by formula in state law. It is not like they have a feeling about $1 million. It's based on your tax, basically your tax cap. And if New Paltz consolidates, the formula dictates that they will get $1 million. It has been going to over 20 communities across the state since 2011 consistently. There was I believe a brief 10% reduction during COVID, but it went back to full amount right after COVID. It is like any other state aid that any local government receives in that it is contingent upon state appropriation. But if they stop doing this, you'd have a really angry set of local governments all over the state in the red, the blue, and the purple sections, for sure. I think the town can be pretty confident that this persists, but like anything else, it is still subject to the will of state legislators, right? I can also say I had a recent conversation with Department of State in which it was made clear to me that they are consistently being allocated more money for the CETC than they are actually spending. Right, like the pot of money isn't even close to being used up, at least on its current allocation.
Scott,
Yeah,
could you tell the crowd what CBTC stands?
yes, that's a great, citizens empowerment tax credit, which is it's a grant given to local governments that reorganize, basically to make it financially in their, interest to sort of rearrange in a way that might boost tax rates by allowing those tax rates to be not as significantly impacted. And yeah, let's see, let's go to the next one. The JCA calls for every current non-elected town and village employee to be retained on their current contract. For village employees, seniority and accrued leave transfer over. This is essentially state law. State law says these people just transfer over. It just is. All services currently provided village will transition to be provided by the town. In the JCA, there's not a single service that's currently provided by the village that isn't specifically dictated as also being provided by the town in the event of consolidation. I already went over, consolidation will not change who pays for water and sewer. And former village residents do keep a voice in town government, but it will change, and that's an important thing to understand. Right now, village residents have representation here on the village board. They also have representation on the town board, in the sense that the town represents the village. If the village goes away, you will not have that village representation. The town has committed in the JCA to ensuring that spots tend to get filled with village residents as openings become available, and they will. Okay, there are some uncertainties in this process. One, project savings, projected savings are estimates, they're not guarantees. That's always the case in a financial model. It's built on recent budgets. Actual results obviously depend on future economic conditions, budgets, inflation, decisions the town board makes, all of that stuff could impact. Right, the best you can do on any financial sort of projection is look at the existing sort of budgets, give people an existing baseline. It'll be up to future boards to decide what the future board, town board budget is. That will determine what the actual tax rate. We already just did the CETC thing. Future boards will make their own choices. I did that, and many specifics get worked out in the transition. I also talked about that. Okay, I have 3 quick clarifications from last hearing. It was noted both directly, I've seen online, and it was said something like this in the hearing, that students and residents don't pay property taxes, therefore this decision should be limited to homeowners. I just want to be clear, and I'm sorry if I sort of devolved into political science professor mode here for 1 second, but who can vote is set by state law, not by the local process. The referendum is over the registered voters of the village and town. Property ownership is not and legally cannot be made a qualification for this referendum. Property qualifications were once common in this country. New York got rid of them, I want to be clear, in the early 1800s. And the US Supreme Court ruled on this question more than 50 years ago as any sort of vote that restricts the property owners is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution of the United States of America. So, everybody gets a vote if you're registered here, and it's just, sorry if that was political science stuff and not.
No, thank you so much
Benjamin's-
for that,
Okay,
because we all know I'm a tenant, so
yeah,
thank
okay,
you, I
yeah.
count, yes.
So there's also been, there were several things said, at the last meeting, I noticed in the hearing about where are the numbers. Well, what the numbers are is ultimately your interpretation, but I wanted to just be clear, the JCA is full fiscal estimates. If you open it up, I will read this if you'd like, but I think I won't, right? These are the exhibits in the JCA that go through every single financial. If you're concerned about those or have questions about those, you can email New Paltz. There's a Q&A process on the website. Those questions come to me, and I make sure that either if I don't know the answer, I talk to people who do, and try to get you a correct answer. But the numbers are there. Whether they're the right numbers for you, I can't say. Everybody's got their own sense of this, but the numbers, I think numbers dictated by the state law and what I think are best understood as being appropriate for this process are there. I think this is my last slide, and then I'll turn it over to you guys. There was several points made that if consolidation is expected to produce a net savings, how is it also not leading to service diminution? And ultimately, it is up to the town to provide the services. They will make the choices on what those services look like. That's always the case in any government, particularly local. But I think it's worth noting that both the town and the village are essentially bare bones budgets as is. They are running, there's no slack in the town budget as best as I can tell, and there's no slack in the village budget as best as I can tell. Right? What is happening in this proposed consolidation is those budgets, there isn't much duplication of service that is getting eliminated. All the savings, which are not that much financially, basically come from they come from eliminating the left half of this room, not eliminating them. You know what I mean? Eliminating their positions. You guys continue to live. The 2 planned retirements, so no terminations, just 2 planned retirements and some duplicative purchasing of software and things like that. They don't come from cutting services. So essentially the money that's going to services now will continue to go to services then. They'll just be run through the town government, not the village. I'm gonna pause there. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to answer questions when it's time, but mostly I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that helped frame things because it's important to keep remembering that this process is like ongoing. And we're just at one part of it right now, and it's all, determined by the state law, and like there are going to be some questions that won't be answered ever, but that's life, especially in government. So if the boards had anything that you all want to still chew on following last week, we can go from there. If not, we can just go to, be saying some ground rules for public comment on the consolidation issue. The consolidation agreement.
I have a few things I wanted to talk about or discuss and find.
There's no.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a few things I wanted to talk about. So, and one, sort of, Scott, were you saying that when the board, when the village,
I
sorry,
want you to be on.
when there are no more village boards, there will be village representation on the town boards. They were hurting for members, so village representatives will be on town board. What we didn't have before was town representatives on village boards. There's a lot that happens in the village. I've lived here almost 50 years. I would love to be more involved what goes on in the village that I come from, but I live in the town, so I don't get to vote on what happens in the village. I don't get to sit on a board that sits in the village. I think one of the wonderful benefits for the town is that we get to look at this as a whole community picture instead of two divided. Not divided as in anger, but, you know, we have sometimes confusion and conflict with these sets of two boards and municipalities. So I don't know if anyone else I have like a few other things, topics I want to talk about, but anyone else?
Yeah,
Similarly about the board?
I mean, I definitely just want to make sure there is space for anyone who didn't talk last time to do so, because I just heard so much from the public, you know, asking kind of like, are you hearing us? You know, are you making changes based on that? And then opening it up, so we don't have to have all of our discussion now, but just if anyone had any input, you know, from last week, say it now. If not, we'll save it for later. If you want to say something.
Kind of formulating.
You had something published, so you're fine. Everyone read the paper for the deputy mayor's thoughts. Anyone have anything? I guess you guys did speak last week too, so.
Yeah, just to share, I have some summary comments that I'd like to make at some point, but I know that I want to keep this meeting as an opportunity for the public
Cool.
and everyone else.
Yeah, that sounds good. Just wanted to make sure, you know, that the public can see that everyone is like taking notes and taking this into account. I know that the comments about adding another like subcommittee about infrastructure and, you know, like buildings and grounds, you know, definitely has been incorporated and discussed at least. So, you know, keep those kinds of comments coming. So with that, I guess let's get into just,
Alex,
yeah.
you mentioned the red line version. Is that available? Can we start looking
I don't
at
know.
it now?
There's one, yeah.
Yeah,
There
there
isn't
is
one
not
yet. They're taking notes, there are notes on suggestions. Like an infrastructure committee was just mentioned. Those will be incorporated into this document to be shared. I think what the goal is next meeting, is that correct? Or there'll be another hearing, so the goal would be to, I guess, as quickly as possible.
Before the next meeting if possible.
Yes, I think that's right. I just note that you still have a hearing, so you gotta keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, the hearing does stay open. We're taking comments in writing up until the Monday of that week. So yeah, were we able to get a red line in advance of the 29th?
It could be
Or is
as
that-
is at that point.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, as at that
Sure.
point.
This would be great, because, you know, then we only have a few days to
Yeah.
actually incorporate the red line into the thing that we're gonna vote on. So as much as we could get in advance would really be great. And one of the things I would like to have us thinking about is that last fall, Mayor Rogers suggested that maybe the village needed to hire a village manager to help with consolidation. And I'm just wondering if we want to build that into the JCA as a town manager. Because we're gonna be asking half as many people to do twice as much work. And we might just want to at least budget for that. We can always not do it if we don't need to, but it just feels to me, just listening to all of this, looking at our JCA, there's going to be a lot of work to do. And, it might make sense to have another person on board.
Kitty, may I correct what you just said? So former Mayor Rogers did not recommend or suggest or introduce the idea of a municipal manager to help with consolidation. What we did as a village board is we talked about the possibility of creating a municipal manager position so that the village board had the option if they wanted to hire one.
Thank you.
It wasn't about
Then-
consolidation. It
Well,
was
it's
about
going to put
running.
into the article that, so that's what I based my comments tonight on, so perhaps that was a misunderstanding.
Anyway, I wrote it down, and I think it's a good idea, like, I made a note to myself to look up what had been done on that end,
Okay.
because I agree, it sounds like a lot of work. Okay, so we have plenty of time after public comment to keep this convo going. So, yeah, just wanted to set some ground rules, if it's cool with the other electeds, to have, comments limited to 3.5 minutes again this time, just, it did help prevent some scrambling for extra rushing, if you're all cool. Okay, so keep it 3.5 minutes or less. Deputy Mayor Stevie is gonna keep the time, so I can just take notes. And, I had a couple sign-in sheets over at the table. Dylan, if you could grab them, and I'll call people's names, and if I say your name wrong, it's because everyone says my name wrong, and I'm sorry. We'll go through folks who signed up to speak on consolidation first. If you want to speak on anything else, like how important good cause eviction is, we're gonna save that for later. This is just a public hearing on consolidation. Some other ground rules is this room, the acoustics are not the best. So if you're talking in the audience, like it gets picked up on the recording and makes it really hard for us to pay attention. So please like keep the side conversations to passing notes. If you need note paper, I can give you some. Keep your comments directed to the topic at hand, consolidation, the joint consolidation agreement. If you're kind of repeating things, maybe consider just quickly emailing it instead, and saying, I second, the person before me, so that we can have more room for more ideas that we can incorporate into this, big agreement that we're considering. If you can address your comments to all of us as a whole, and just like let people comment and not engage. I know I'm a big clapper and cheer when I go to other towns for their public hearings, but if we could keep that to a minimum today, so I don't throw up from this migraine I've been coming off of, that would be awesome. And we could clap and cheer some other time. What else? Just, yeah, let's not attack any individuals up here. It's really uncomfortable for me to chair a meeting and to just sit here and take notes when it gets personal. So let's just not do that. We're New Paltz. Keep it together. And with that, we never closed it. Yeah, it remains open. So, and that's how we're able to accept the comments like all the time. Yeah, totally. That said, any oral comments said to me at the supermarket don't count. So we'll start with Joe Miller and then Paul Brown's on deck.
I'm Joe Miller and Vice President of the New Paltz Fire Department.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I should have said, if you can also come up, just because the clerks can only hear if this microphone picks you up. So I'm sorry. There's a bit of a dramatic red carpet thing going on. Thank you.
I'll raise my hand when there's a 15-second warning.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm Joe Miller, the Vice President of the New Paltz Fire Department. And the New Paltz Fire Department wants to acknowledge that Supervisor Rogers did communicate with us since the last hearing. We are not yet ready to respond to the Consolidation Committee position paper concerning our fire department. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well said.
All right, Paul Brown and then Pierrette Farber's on deck.
Good evening. My name is Paul Brown. I live in New Paltz. I feel I should open now by saying I come not to bury the JCA. I come to help you make it better in time for that vote. I think you know that. The current version of the joint consolidation agreement, however, shows no evidence of having benefited from the relevant evidence-based research studies conducted by the Rockefeller Institute of Government, where distinguished professor of political science, Dr. Lisa K. Parshall, found that, and this is a quote of hers from her paper, residents more frequently reject juice dissolution as symbolic of community decline rather than embrace it as a pathway to modernization and lower taxes and efficiencies. That's just what the people are thinking in New York State. The truth is, if you follow the money, as some have said, you find that the majority of the dissolved villages simply needed the money. They could not survive economically. Those 20 out of what, 560 needed the money, most of them. The village of New Paltz in no way matches the profile of villages in New York State who have chosen to dissolve or disincorporate or consolidate with local towns, as clearly shown by the research of Dr. Penju Zhang. I don't want to sound political science either, but I'm a psychologist. Dr. Zhang, a graduate of Syracuse University, is an associate professor in the School of Public Affairs and Administration at Rutgers University. Professor Zhang looked at the post-dissolution, after the dissolution occurred, in many of these, more than these 20 towns, other towns that weren't getting the CETA. Professor Zhang looked at them, and he looked at the economic impact on both the people in the village and the town outside the village. I don't like that term. It does sound divisive, but I know it's not meant to be. His study showed, and here's his quote, "Dissolution is more likely to be considered and approved in a village where the economy struggles, the population declines, political trust erodes, and fiscal health deteriorates." That's not our village. In other words, the research suggests dissolution may not be as appealing or take place in economically strong and politically dynamic areas like we have here. We're fortunate to. Regarding any predicted economic savings, that's been woven into this JCA. Professor Zhang studies reports on the work of the New York Conference of Mayors. These are all mayors of New York State. They got together in their report, officially published, efficiencies resulting from village dissolution run in the area of 2 to 5%, 2 to 5% of the total town and village expenses. The reason being, why? That both the towns and the villages in the study were already found to be running relatively efficient operations, and there are people around this table who can take credit for that. But you may not get our vote for anymore. The village of New Paltz, located in what is commonly referred to as a college town, as you continue to work on this flawed document, please take a look at the villages of Alfred, home to Alfred University, the village of Brockport, home to SUNY Brockport, the village of Casanova, home to Casanova, Highland Falls, home to West Point, and our town. I'm going to take a second more because he took up a lot of my time that I'm supposed to be with my family. Our own village of SUNY New Paltz has had 10 of these kinds of meetings since 1949. And there have been at least 3 of them that took 5 minutes. The first in 1966 rejected dissolution, 59 to 41 and 257 to 106. At best, this document is vague and unsupported. An agreement to agree is no agreement at all. You can do better. You can ask yourself if these whereas statements are true to you personally, if you've negotiated enough. I've seen no negotiations. And if you want me to trust you and many other voters, this revision is necessary. I hope you can get it done by August, but if you can't, please take the time. You're the one putting yourself under pressure, not me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kira is next, followed by Susan Piotti.
Good evening. My name is Pierrette Barber. I'm a longtime resident, homeowner, business owner, and working mother in the town of New Paltz. I'm a candidate for the Ulster County Legislative District 17, the town of New Paltz and Esopus, and I co-lead the Indivisible New Paltz Group. Most of us at some point in our lives have had to make a significant decision that may have impacted several people in our lives and different parts of our lives. A few of us may have said afterwards, I wish I had known that piece of information before I made this decision. Hindsight, as we know, is 2020. I am respectfully requesting that each one of you acknowledge that you do not have all the information that we need to be certain that this is the best decision in the interest of the majority of the people that you represent and you serve, and who will be impacted by your decision to go forward at this time. The reason I am certain that you do not have all the information needed is because the devastating effect of all the federal cuts have not fully reached New York State. We know it is going to be bad. It would take a year to 18 months, as the projections are, for New York State government to fully comprehend the impacts and make the significant budgetary adjustments that will need to be made to ensure that New York State can continue to meet the needs of all of its citizens. Essential services, fixed costs, and mandated line items will be the first and the highest priority. Conversely, non-essential or non-required expenses will most likely be cut. The $1 million CETC funding is neither essential or required budget line item. We will not know if the CETC money will be granted on a year-to-year basis. And the next couple of years look like the most unpredictable time for our New York State government budget in a very long time. So why rush ahead without all the information? Is this the right thing for our town and village at this moment in time? Let's keep fleshing out the details. Let's take the time to make a plan that answers all of the questions. And so we don't have to ask, if only I knew afterwards.
Thank you. All right, we have Susan Powdy, next. Hi, Audi. Hiawatha, sorry, with Don Kerr on deck.
I have two questions. One is, the consolidation first hit our local paper, I started reading about it, and now my memory's foggy. There was a discussion about having a separate person take care of the issues of the village versus issues in the town. And there was a big chunk of money. I want to say, in my memory, it's like $85,000, but my memory could really be wrong. And so I'd like that part to be addressed, like who's going to do the special village job versus you doing the town job. And I'd like to know who that person is going to be. It's, I believe, up to the village to the town supervisor to decide who that person will be, where we have an elected mayor. And so I don't know why or how to justify losing a mayor that was elected just to have somebody else put in place to do the village business. And my other question is, last time you said there'd be postcards sent to inform people that we were having this meeting, and I don't know anybody who got a postcard. So if we can't even send out simple postcards, how do we consolidate without all involving?
So Don Kerr, followed by details.
Sit down so I don't have to pull my laptop up.
Come on up.
Emergency preparedness. Evening. So I've got three topics I want to address tonight, and I don't mean to be yelling at you, but I want to be heard in the back of the room. The integrity of the information presented, the importance of the information not presented, and if I have time, morality, loyalty, and humanity. We saw the numbers that these predictions of tax decreases are based on the budgets for 24 and 25. This is a 100-year decision based on year one and maybe year two, but there's no facts or consideration of years 3, 4, 5, and beyond. And that's when this village will totally change, as will the expenses. This proposal is being sold on the assertion that taxes will decrease, and they may. for a year before the bubble bursts. Right after the time period described in the presentation, New Paltz Apartments is gonna fill up. And they're gonna need police, fire, rescue squad, and DPW services. And because the owners were awarded a pilot, they're not paying taxes for those increased services.
They
We
were
are.
not awarded a pilot.
All those buildings on North Chestnut Street will fill up, and they'll need services. And Woodland Pond will expand, likely with a pilot, at least they'll ask for one, needing rescue squad services on our nickel. And the assertion is taxes will go down. We know now what the population is gonna be when those buildings fill up. We know now what the population will be when New Paltz Apartments fills up. So we really need a 5-year growth projection and a projection of what the effect will be on our taxes. Any assertion that a consolidated New Paltz will pay less taxes is a momentary bubble which will quickly burst. Just as important, the information not being presented, and this was before Mr. Miller spoke. I was going to point out that the Daily Freeman reported that New Paltz Fire Department Vice President Joe Miller said, quote, "Potential impacts of consolidation have not been discussed with volunteer firefighters." Now, after that article, there was contact.
No, the contact was made in July of 2025.
I'm going by the quote from a gentleman who's not you. All right, so to preserve my time, what about the police and the rescue squad? Anyone talk to them about the cost of population growth? If so, are the numbers in this presentation? If not, why not? It's important. The cost of services will go up when the population increases. And we need to get some sort of real math and real numbers. Besides the increase in cost of services is the need for investment in infrastructure. And one specific example is a May 2025 Facebook post from then Mayor Rogers, which addresses our need to expand the wastewater treatment plant on Huguenot Street. That post from last May promises an estimate of the scope of this project and likely costs, quote, by the end of 2025. This expensive wastewater plant expansion must be done. It's not opinion, it's not politics, it's can we put 15 pounds of potatoes in a 10-pound sack? As the population increases, we simply need to expand that plant. So again, to quote from May 2025, our study will consider an updated New Paltz plant designed for both 1.5 million or 2 million gallons per day. And we anticipate having our engineering study complete by the end of 2025. A comparable project in Kingston, which was cited in that post, according to publicly available information, is running $9.4 million.
Just start to wrap up, please,
Okay?
and then email us.
Yeah. No, New Paltz hasn't proceeded with the promised study. We don't have the numbers. We don't have any idea what that's gonna cost. And to not have that information and being told that taxes will go down, it's, you know, I don't know.
Thank you.
Hey,
thank
guys,
you.
I just want to say really quick, Mayor Wojcik said she's recovering from a migraine and asked people not to clap or yell out, so please
We can
be
sign
respectful
it.
of that.
Okay, so Dave just wanted,
Continue to have people like Don Kerr conflate property taxes with water and sewer rates. They're completely different. They're
so,
not allowed to be commingled. And Scott addressed that in his introduction.
up next, Michael Giller.
No, they're not good. They can't be commingled.
I like to ask, in a public hearing, it's the public's opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
So. Like, well, I'm making notes for myself to like kind of like get through everyone, and we should definitely talk about all those issues right at the end.
Yeah.
I
Why
think-
don't we do it 5 at a time? Why don't we do 5 of them, have a discussion, then we can talk about that, then do 5 and have discussions, and then do 5 and have discussions, and then do 5 and have discussions. Because what's happening is that we're going to the end, and everyone talks, and before we can answer their question, they leave. So I think it would be beneficial for us to go piece by piece. So we've done about 5, right? There's been some things here when we talk about those 5, and then.
Exactly 5.
Okay, does that sound like?
Anyone opposed?
We are.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no one's opposed. Okay, so let's.
No, there was people were opposed.
Yeah, but they don't vote. We're voting. They don't, that's not. That's a vote. Yeah. Yeah. So I-
How's the village?
I agreed earlier in the meeting to do the format.
And we're the voters.
I agreed earlier in the meeting to do the format that the mayor and the chair proposed, so that's the format I'm ready.
Okay, so we'll stick with this, but let's talk next time about a different format and kind of doing it from the get-go, if that's cool. So next we have Michael Zeller, followed by Kim Squallis, sorry.
Thank you. Before my time starts, I didn't mean any disrespect. Because public hearings are
I know.
intense
But
and
Michael, it's also important when people are just like declaring misinformation.
no,
So
I
I'm gonna correct
understand.
them.
I
I'm
understand
gonna
that.
correct them.
Right, and I understand there's a way to do it and there's a time to do it, so I appreciate that. But it's hard, this is a contentious topic, this is a contentious topic and public hearings, not everybody who comes to speak, speaks comfortably, and it's important that town boards and village boards, that elected people or volunteers who sit at public hearings respect the right of the public to say things to the extent of the knowledge that they have, and if there is an opportunity for you to correct it, there can be, but to interrupt, to get disruptive, to be annoyed is not an acceptable behavior for a public hearing. I've been on your side of the table for hundreds of public hearings, I understand how.
Here, please, let's do this.
All right, my name is Michael Zeller, I live in New Paltz. I'm going to try to provide points by point for specific sections of the JCA where I think there needs to be some clarification, additions or amendments. The JCA is silent or thin on many of the risks, challenges, and additional costs of eliminating the village government. It also gives little information on how or who made decisions that led to this draft JCA. I have a number of comments which I'll provide in writing. Tonight, I'm only going to give you a sample. I hope that the JCA can be amended to answer these questions, provide numbers, data, rationales, and background information. Section 4.8.3.5 related to the New Paltz Fire Department. Who would be responsible for the administrative functions required to fund and maintain a fire department currently carried out by the village? Please detail all of these administrative costs and the mechanism by which that could take place. Section 4.B.2.3, what is the evidence that led to the conclusion in the JCA that a hamlet fire protection district is, quote, the most straightforward option at this time, unquote? Identify, please, who was consulted and involved in making this decision. 3, also related to that section, why should we create a hamlet fire protection district and then later eliminate it to expand to include just a single district? Why incur those additional legal costs to produce maps, reports, and the filing fees associated with it? Why not just create a fire protection district that's townwide in the first place? Third, nearly 900 towns in New York State use the fire district model for fire protection. How and why was the decision made to choose a fire protection district in the JCA over a fire district model? I know it talks about a fire district model, but as a point post consolidation, again, who was consulted and who made that decision? Employees of the village and town section 7.C, 7.C2, and 7.C3. References to municipalities making quote unquote their best efforts regarding transfer of employees with no adverse impacts will only be able to occur after the vote for consolidation, as Scott pointed out, this and many other things. Therefore, there are no guarantees. This risk should simply be highlighted in the JCA. It is not a certainty. Town Hall, section 7.C. What is planned for where the combined current village and town staff will actually work after consolidation? We don't really have buildings that I believe are suitable to house all of those people. Therefore, including the JCA, buildings and infrastructure plan regarding where government will be housed, meetings will occur, residents will go for services, and etc. 7.D.1.1 and 7.D.2. Please describe a mechanism for explaining how the 7-member town planning board will now manage a doubling of their work. Provide options for how that could be handled and the strengths and challenges of each option. Provide details of the proposed planning department, specifically identify number of employees, their roles, salaries,
contractual costs and operational costs. I realize these are estimates, but we need them. And their relationship to the relevant boards, commissions, and committees. Include a paragraph, please, about the village's design review board. Yep. Which is not mentioned, it will be constituted in the town. What will its roles be? What will its jurisdiction be? Will it be only in the village? Will it be town-wide? And will it have regulatory powers or be advisory only?
What, sorry, I'm taking notes, man. What was the last one? I know.
Design review board.
Okay, okay, thank you.
7.2.1.1,
Got it.
7.2.2, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Hey. Can I make one clarification on my presentation?
Yeah,
So, when I say when the JCA says taxes, it refers specifically to town and village property taxes that are from the town and village governments. Everybody who lives in New Paltz who pays property taxes directly, pays them, to a variety of sources. Your biggest, property tax bill goes to the schools, and it's entirely set and, rates.
Right. We know.
Okay, I know, hold on, just give me 1 second. And all rates and infrastructure paid for by, have to be paid for by the people receiving that service, and that's an entirely separate bill. The point is only that any tax projection, up, down, left, or right, is specific to those very narrow taxes.
thank you. So Kim and then Jackie Brownstein's on deck.
Hi, I really don't have too much to add, but I did take a few notes. The gentleman over here had mentioned about this transition period of 2 years. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this transition period is a time that people are looking at what's already been decided. Which means there'll be no real input from anyone from the village at that point. It's gonna clearly be a decision of the people on the town that we consolidated into. That 2 year period.
It has a committee with both people on.
Yeah, but there's really no power that we have anymore. Once the consolidation goes through, we lost that power. So that's one comment. The other thing that I still can't wrap my head around how we are saving money. We're keeping all the employees, which I'm happy about. I love the village employees. I personally don't mind paying a village tax because I value the services I get. I say hi to these people. I know these people and I appreciate them. All right. I don't know how we're going to save money if they're still all being employed. And I'm not suggesting that they shouldn't be. I've spoken to many of them who are not happy about this, do not want this to happen. And I'm behind them personally for that. Having one supervisor, in my opinion, dilutes the focus on the village and it reduces checks and balances. And that's another thing that really concerns me. It also concerns me of, is there going to be any special district created for the village where village residents will actually pay a tax for that? So I'm not convinced that my taxes are going to go down. And I also realize that people have brought this up before about this money, you know, the CET. $700,000 that has to go toward reducing taxes. You multiply that by how many people are in the town and the village. How much are they really going to save? You're talking peanuts here. You're not talking a whole lot of money that's going to make a difference in their tax bill. So, I mean, I'm open to listening to things and rereading things, but I just can't really see this as a viable decision that we should be making for the town or the village.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next is Jackie Brownstein and then William Weinstein is on deck. Okay. And then so our Kimple is on deck.
Good evening, good to see you. I'm going to be taking a different position than my dear neighbors. I've lived in New Paltz 58 years, 2 of which were in the village. The other, how many years did I say? 56 have been in the town. I have to say, I've always been confused ever since I came to this area. Why there were two administrative and government entities in these very small population entities. Much smaller, obviously, when I first came than currently, but still quite small. I have looked carefully at the documents. I've listened to my neighbors. This is the third presentation I've attended. I asked all the questions that I had in the previous two. And I think I have done due diligence. And I also believe, by the way, that I think your groups have done due diligence. And I do support consolidation. I think it will be more efficient. I think it will be less confusing. I certainly don't keep track when I'm on a road, if I'm in the town or if I'm in the village, and I take responsibility for both those entities, regardless of where I'm living. I live in New Paltz. My major concern remains the transition period. I'm particularly concerned about the employees and that everything be done to be fair to those employees. And I think, you know, there are certain things that have to be worked out. Obviously, there's negotiation with the unions, but in addition to that, who will be in charge? How will that work? Will there be co-leaders? I still don't see that. And I do understand from Scott's presentation that those questions would not be answered until we go through transition. I just want to be brief. I just want to say I do support consolidation. Thank you.
Thank you. So next we had R. Klimpel, followed by Reverend Ellison Moore.
Hi, I don't know what is it okay if I just stand here?
As long as this picks you up,
Yeah, am I picked up my voice generally?
I can't tell because I can't see the thing. Okay, yeah,
Okay,
you're good.
Robin Klimple. Okay, I'm gonna say one thing very briefly. And it goes back to communication. I went to middle school tonight. Because that's what the two previous meetings were. There was not even a notice on the door redirected. I redirected two people to come here. That, in light with communication, I do think I need to bring up what someone else brought up at the last meeting. We have a number of students that will be coming back to this, that are voters. If we can't communicate at this level where to meet, what do we have in place to communicate what this whole thing is about to these students who haven't even had the opportunity if they haven't been ill? And I also did not get a postcard. But that's actually an aside. I still have concerns. I understand that existing infrastructure in terms of costs for village and town are separate and are designed to remain separate. My concern is new capital infrastructure, i.e. waste treatment. And because that is a capital expenditure to whatever consolidated body comes. And I do not know the legality if that is split off also for only the people that will benefit from that water.
It is.
Or treatment. But I think other people need to be made aware of that. And also any liability that happens with existing infrastructure within the village, i.e. this groundwater. We've all heard it if we haven't had it in our own pipes. That would also fall on residents of the consolidated township. The other issues that I wanted to bring up is, and state funding is not a guarantee. I'm a medical provider. One of my major funding sources had suffered a 20% kick, federal government, federal to state, which trickles down. the cost to those that I service and the lack of service that will result is ridiculous. But I also think that we cannot take that $1 million as a given, projecting it forward. You know, short term maybe, but we all know federal cuts have hit. And there is a trickle down, and it's trickling down very significantly now to state. And my other two issues would be zoning. Town zoning versus village zoning, very different animals. It leads to a very different flavor. It leads to a very different tax base and a very different profile to our community, which I'm saying writ large. I think that we need to figure out how that's going to happen. I do think this process has so more questions than answers. I still can't wrap my head around, and I would love some clarification as to why this ever came up. Because it's clearly not really a major savings on. Okay, and one last thing, I'm presuming that this is gonna happen on August, whatever. But I'd like some clarification on who's gonna be writing the referendum/resolution that's gonna be sitting on the flip side of any ballot that's presented to anyone on November 4th.
That's already been decided at the state level, and basically just says should be consolidated.
And who writes that? Because words always matter. Implicitly, you cannot take subjectivity out of something when it can be presented in a more objective
We
manner.
add that language, and we should probably.
Yeah, it just means that we all need more communication. We all need more information. This is a very big decision that our community writ large is being asked to evaluate and potentially vote on. And it just seems extraordinarily rushed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. We have that language already, right?
Yeah.
Already read.
Yeah, okay, we'll circle back to that because it's in there. So next Allison Moore and then Maggie R is on deck.
Oh,
you did-
passed.
Oh, sorry.
Signed up for the wrong thing.
Maggie Ramirez, if you wanted to talk, come on up. And then Klaus Yoder, I think wanted to talk on something else. If that's the case, we'll wait, but if not, you're on deck.
I also like to stand here as well.
Is it picking her up?
Yeah, there I go. It's important to note that the minutes of your last meeting does not reflect any of the details or extensive comments that were provided by the public regarding the plan and the issue of consolidation. It was like nothing was said, you skipped right over it. Hopefully this record will be more detailed and better report of what was said. I understand consolidation is overwhelming and you should know to you and obviously to all of us, but all the more reason to take this off the table and put in the required work as Mike Zierler has recommended, because if you ram this through, it cannot be undone. It cannot be undone. And you will all be held responsible for that decision and repercussions because you have allowed it to proceed without making sure the required information and data is there. While I know there is at least one person who would like to ram consolidation through, all of you have a moral, ethical, political, professional obligation and responsibility to the town and village residents of New Paltz. Where is the data? Where is the detail? Where are the assumptions? Where is the map or the facts to support the claims being made in this plan? How can you possibly state, for example, and this has been repeated by several people already, that the CTEC $1 million is a given? You all make it sound like it is. In fact, that money has to be appropriated by the state every year. There are no guarantees on this amount and whether it will always be available, especially given the country's current turmoil. Most importantly, that money is not going to be sufficient to cover village expenses because as we all know, all expenses are going up. There will be no village services or employees that will be eliminated, but village taxes will go down significantly. Obviously, Obviously, the town baseline taxes will have to be up soon to account for the transfer of village costs. Prove to me, please, that I'm wrong. Will those of you on the town board allow a person with sections of consolidation to harm the New Falls taxpayers in order to consolidate power? Why aren't you demanding details and assumptions be clearly laid out for review and discussion by all? What are you on the board for, if at least that? Mr. Rogers wrote a letter to the Hudson Valley One editor stating consolidation is not about a merger. It's about streamlining administration. Well, the town and village has a long history and excellent relationship of shared services and working together without consolidation. Why the heck would you fix something that is not broken and upset the entire apple cart, incur significant new expenses for the town? Consolidation is not changing anything except to
15
consolidate
seconds.
power, decision-making in all neighborhoods. And finally, I'd like to say that the minutes refer to Tim Rogers as the mayor of New Paltz. Probably an appropriate title, but did anyone even bother to look at the minutes? Sadly, I think this is a reflection of the lack of detail going into the process. It is inadequate, it is incomplete and deceptive. We need to stop this before we create harm and end up paying for this.
Can you wrap it up,
consolidation, which is not even necessary through the nose. Don't be afraid, we need you all to be courageous.
Thank you.
About, had a comment about her comments not being in the minutes. People have to type them out and send it to the town, correct? Is that a process?
No, so, I mean, the minutes usually are like names and summaries and stuff, you know, and there's different styles. I definitely don't recommend doing what I used to do, because that was too much.
The minutes are not a transcript, but
Yeah,
we do
right.
record all meetings.
Yes, so, but if somebody
Minutes are
wanted
legal.
all of their, or everything they said included, they could send in a document with what they just read to us.
Yeah, and just like, if I put my activist hat back on, I recommend anytime you make a public comment anywhere, follow up with it in writing.
Okay.
Paul Brown always does that, do
Yes.
that.
No, I just have a question while we have the lawyer here. Is it a different process for public comment at a public hearing than at a regular meeting? Is there a place where comments should go that were given at a public hearing?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean, where comments should go.
Like where they get compiled, is that what you mean?
So we
Well,
have,
for example, when we have a public hearing on annexation, every person's comment is in that transcript. Of course, we have a stenographer. Maybe we should have a stenographer for our final meeting.
so the record of the hearing includes everything that was said, which we're gonna have in the transcription of the hearings that they're being generated by Zoom, right? And then we also have the minutes and we have the written comments. All of those comprise the record of the hearing.
And where does that live?
The clerk,
Yeah.
the clerk.
So not in the consolidation documents?
No, that's
Because
not,
there's one document there, and it's last week's presentation from the Benjamin Center, but none of the written comments were.
We can add a link to the minutes and stuff like that.
So maybe we should transcribe those transcriptions, the whole block of text.
And make a
Put
folder.
there. It says July 7th,
We can talk.
public hearing. And the only thing there is Benjamin Center's position statement. So maybe that's a place where we could take just a copy of the transcript and put that in as, you know, the public comment at the public hearing.
yeah, we can have a
Yeah.
link to the video easily, but I think we're gonna need to create a record that the village keeps. I don't think all of that is gonna go on the website.
I don't think that all winds up on there, but we'll follow up on that because it should all be in one spot for sure. And let's make a note and then talk about this more, but let's keep hearing from people. So if I see there's some good cause aficionados on this list, just as I go through, if you're not here for consolidation, just hang tight. Did Klaus want to talk?
I was here for a good cause.
Okay, and then next, Mike Pavia,
I'll pass.
followed by Jade Horton.
I'm here for good cause.
Okay, Gigi Freeze. Cool, and then I think I know June's here for, good cause. I don't know, Duncan, if you're consolidation, but you're next. All right, Gigi, take it away.
I was kind of confused when Scott was talking. And we were talking about how there was this big fund and it was still had a lot of money. What was the fund called? CPC fund? Okay. But I don't hear anybody addressing the $400,000 transitional cost. So there's $50,000 that you know you can get towards that cost, but what if you can't get that one-time transitional cost in CEPC?
The transitional costs come from a different fund, right? They come from the, I'm forgetting the acronym.
The $400,000? Where did they come from? I'm not seeing it.
From the,
There's two grant opportunities.
Right.
The Craig program.
right,
You get 90% of your planning money and then another 50K towards implementation.
that's right.
It's all through the
Wait,
US
so
local
what's two
government.
numbers adding up to?
90% of $100,000, 90K, and then $50,000.
And it says it's 400,000?
So the 400,000 transition costs are part of the fiscal estimate as a whole. They're separate from the CEC. What was that?
We've always seen them as part of the $1 million CEPC.
Absolutely right.
Yes.
70% can go to taxes, 30% can go
To anything.
tuition,
And
and $300,000 the first year may not be enough. So, well, $100,000 down the road, or we may need to use that whole $300,000 for many years.
that's correct.
Well, excuse me, not for many years because the transition costs won't persist.
That's right, but it could be used, in theory, it could be used however, that's correct, yeah.
We'll let the public continue.
It was like, oh, I think it's a one-time cost. That's how it was described.
Are you talking about the transition cost?
Yeah.
They're 1 or 2 year costs depending on the situation, on which one, but yeah, there'll be some cost to transition, yes. They're factored into the fiscal analysis and they are seen as part of CEC.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah.
Okay,
I will say in follow-up is that the way that transition costs are addressed in the agreement, in draft agreement, don't make it clear that CETC funds will be used to cover those. It says that they are in a certain range and it indicates that there's this opportunity for the $50,000 grant.
Sure.
But not for, there's no specific indication of how we would fund the balance of it.
Fair
And it's been
enough.
asked a couple times. so
That might be a
probably
good function of fungibility.
It could be, but I think we could represent what would be, you know, our current thinking as to how those.
Sure, we can share that with
Those become.
Birch for sure.
Legally, up to $300,000 can be used to transition, because 70% has to be used to
Yes.
taxes.
Yeah, it can be used all.
Sure, yeah, but I'm just saying that we can choose to use it for transition.
As long as we're talking about that, my understanding of that 300,000 is it can be used for transition, but it can also be used for any other
Yes,
implementation.
Yep.
Consultants.
anything.
Right. So, it could be used for transition, we can hold that for the first couple of years, but then it can be used for consultants, attorneys. Right,
And or it could be used for tax reduction.
or it could go back.
Or you could buy a fire truck.
So I'm gonna keep going through this list, and again, if you're here not for consolidation, we'll be circling back. Duncan, did you? Oh, yeah,
They can speak to consolidation even though it's not. They talk.
oh, yeah, we'll circle back to clock, sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, yeah, open-minded, my name's Claude Theodore, I'm a homeowner in the town of New Paltz, the kids go to the school district here, very open-minded on good cause. Very open-minded on consolidation, one of my concerns though is that the village passed a proposition like a year and a half ago. And I'm concerned that if we do consolidation, is it going to extend into the town? And which should happen anyway, but if consolidation were to happen and we lost those protections, then the people who got them in the village would also lose them, that'd be terrible. I'll just say, you know, as someone with kids in the school district, I love the sort of public character of this town, from Elton to Moriello to the school district. And it's a place where there's like class diversity, there's racial diversity. And I think it's at its best when it's accessible to different kinds of people. But you know, as someone who talks to folks who grew up in New Paltz, they say that when they were here in the 90s and 2000s, their class sizes were double what they are now. And for me, that really shows that like there's an affordability crisis that, you know, there's not just a New Paltz problem, it's a national problem, but in New Paltz, rents are high, wages are not particularly high. And so we're seeing working class people being pushed out of being able to live here. And I think that's destabilizing the character of this community. And I think if consolidation is going to go into effect, it needs to take into account extending good cause, eviction protections to the strongest degree possible, which means designating a landlord as someone who owns one unit, and also setting the exemption at 345% of the fair market rate. I think this is crucial for solidifying and protecting the working class people who are the foundation of this community. So that's what I want to say to you all. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
That was a door.
Matt Teglash, oh, Duncan, I didn't mean to skip you, sorry. And then Matt, you're on deck, followed by Ben.
I did come for good conservation, but it seems that consolidation is a very contentious matter here these days. I would like to throw my 2 cents in. What we do every second in our lives and the places that we are, it goes into the world around us. And right now, authoritarianism is on the rise in the world. Are we sure that consolidation is the right idea? Is this the way we want to rise? In that note, it doesn't seem like a good idea to decide to start learning to juggle when you are walking on rocky ground. That's all.
Thank you. And then Matt Teglash. Oh, okay. Ben Healy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben. Try and leave some time on the floor for other people. I know there's been a lot going on, so I appreciate your attention. I'm here to speak in favor of good cause. I am a renter in New Paltz. I have lived in New Paltz on and off since 1996.
So FYI, this is still consolidation.
This is still the consolidation.
Yeah,
Let me come back.
yeah, unless you had a connection, okay.
Thank you.
Hang tight, sorry. That was just practice. Next, if Nate Webner, wanted to speak on consolidation, followed by Jolanda.
I'm good.
Okay. Then you're, go.
The hard copies. I don't think I made enough though.
Oh, thank you.
So, good evening, Joe Londa, Town of New Paltz. Last week I was here to speak to you about making a change to JCA, about naming a working group reporting to steering committee, DPW and hall infrastructure, which would be charged with a scope on examining the options and the analysis. I was not trying to suggest that work group be formed before the referendum, nor should the work be done before the referendum. It's all post referendum. So, you know, so I do hope that you'll take up this discussion of that modification and understand pros and cons of it. You probably lost sleep wondering, what are the options he's talking about? Well, maybe you didn't sleep, I don't know. Anyway, I think there are 6 options. And I'm just gonna quickly go through them. The first one is do nothing, because we need a baseline. Not that we actually want to do nothing, because the town hall, the trailers, is not a situation that can last. In fact, we're beyond lasting. But it's important to baseline it in terms of the operating costs, the maintenance, and whatever investments might be needed if we're gonna stay the way we are. The second option is to keep the two DPW facilities and then identify a range of investments for remodeling the village hall into consolidated town hall. The government efficiency grant could be within that range. It could be the low end, or it could be the high end, it could be something, but it's in that range. So that's option 2. Option 3 is simply to add to option 2, investing in consolidation of the DPW on Clearwater. And then the range of investments in the village hall into a consolidated town hall. So it's really just the addition of consolidation of DPW on Clearwater. Option 4 is to invest in that consolidation of the DPW of Clearwater and build a new town hall on the site of the village DPW. These first 4 are rather specific because they're pretty well understood, although the investment level could vary quite a bit depending on how far you want to go. The next 2 are generic options because there's unknowns associated with the next 2. So number 5 is to purchase vacant land and invest in building a new town hall. You can then decide if you want to consolidate DPW on Clearwater. It's unknown because the purchase of land varies and what's available. And it may not, we don't know if it'll be affordable or not, but it's an option. And then the 6th one is similar in that you purchase an existing building and invest in remodeling it into a new town hall. Again, what's available depends on time and adequacy, which change the investment level. There is no answer here on which one is best. Oh, so there's no answer on which one's best. And it's only through the analysis can you come to a reasonable conclusion on which one should we invest in. Because I think the consolidation is a great thing. Because it will put us on a path to the future. This should be part of what we're thinking in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on consolidation tonight? If so, come on up. Okay, you can keep submitting comments by writing. Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Okay. I just wanted to say a couple of things.
Come on up closer, so our clerks can take note, and also I like to go home after these and watch the whole thing over again.
That's
So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm Amanda Dotto, and I'm just,
Wait one second.
Hold on a second. Interlude. Are we gonna?
Speak up.
Okay, I'm Amanda Dotto. I've been following this with a lot of interest, obviously. I know everybody here, and I really appreciate everything that you're doing. Just a couple of things. A public hearing is not the same thing as public comments. It's testimony that becomes part of the public record. Whether it's in the minutes or not is one thing, but it has to be somewhere available as the public record. So all of this, whether people give you it in writing or not, you still have to transcribe it and do that. The minutes, however, from the last public hearing left me speechless. I don't, but I gotta say, did any of you guys look at them? Because you would have seen this. I mean, the meeting was not a regular joint meeting on Wednesday, starting at 7 p.m. You know, there's just a lot of things in here that aren't right. You don't have people's names, you don't have their last names. And yet it does end saying that the meeting, you didn't say you adjourned the public hearing, which you did. Because you know, no, you didn't close it. You adjourn it until another time. That's how it works. You have to say, you know, and you get to vote on that. And unfortunately, and this is just, I'm sure this is a cut and paste error, but it does say that Mayor Rogers moves to adjourn the regular meeting of the Village Board of Trustees. I mean, come on, who looked at you? Come on, folks. You got it. This is how much attention we're paying to this kind of thing. It's important. Even these details are important. Pay attention to what's happening here. Make us have trust in you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else on consolidation? Okay, so, would now be a good time to, because we have kind of gotten to, we have gotten to 8:30. So on the village end of things, I would suggest that we do use our special meeting for business items. for tomorrow night so that we can have room for, discussion and stuff. But there are people who did come to make comments on other agenda items. So I don't know if we should just continue with just a general public comment and then have our just kind of closing up the session. How's everyone feel? Cool. So, if folks who want to speak on other issues on the agenda can come up, I can kind of go back through and see who didn't speak, or you can just kind of come up in an orderly fashion, and that would be awesome. And we'll keep these to 3 minutes and,
This isn't my train. I'm gonna step off
Yeah.
this area.
yeah. Yeah, come on up.
I feel like we should discuss the stuff we heard about, to pass on, and then
But just the thinking is that people are here, so let them speak while they're here.
Yeah, just because people have to arrange jobs, lives, transportation, childcare, et cetera.
Thank
All right, June.
Hello, everybody. My name is June Neiman. I'm a tenant organizer with Hudson Valley Tenants Union. We organize tenants all throughout the region, largely places that have tenant protections like good cause eviction, including the village. I'm here today to speak a little bit about good cause eviction and specifically why I think the town should take action to pass it proactively, especially in the lead up to this potential merger. As you all probably know, the housing crisis in the country and in this region is particularly bad. Ulster County has one of the biggest deficits between wages and rents, and New Paltz is worse than most places even in Ulster County, and that's according to the now slightly outdated report from 2023, but I'm sure it's not gotten better since then. And so I just, in case it's not entirely clear, what good cause does. Good cause is a law that says that you can't be evicted for no reason. It says that you have a rent cap of roughly 8% annually, which is very high still. And that there is an automatic renewal of leases so that tenants cannot just be kicked out because their lease comes to an end. This is a law that has been passed at the statewide level, and over 20 municipalities in upstate New York have opted in, including many in the Mid-Hudson Valley and including the village. I work with tenants. A lot of tenants come to me every single day asking about all these different issues. Sometimes it's about rent, sometimes it's about maintenance repairs. And one of the critical things that good cause does is that it gives tenants the power to make asks around critical repairs like mold or giant holes in their ceilings without fear of retaliation, without fear that making that ask is going to lead to their eviction. And I get calls all the time from both tenants in the village and tenants in the town. And the conversations I have are very different. Because in the village, I can say, okay, you say these things, you can talk to your neighbors, you can come together, you can form a union, you can ask for these things together. When they're in the town, if they do those things, it's very likely that they'll be evicted for that. And so for that reason, alone, even without the merger conversation, I would strongly encourage you all to consider the needs of the tenants that are in the town, right? I know it's a majority homeowner municipality, but there are tenants, and look at their needs as well and try to pass a law that will protect them. But I think coming to the point of consolidation, there's a lot of village tenants who are very worried and nervous about consolidation because they don't know how exactly good cause will get factored in. So I heard earlier that there's no town law or village law that would be undone necessarily by the merger. The town would have to choose to do that. But I think, understandably, village tenants are scared about what could happen with a merger. I heard a little bit earlier that there's some talk about not even giving tenants the ability to vote on a possible merger, right? And second, okay, just very quickly, and essentially tenants would make up 46% of all residents of this municipality, even when it's combined. So I just want to strongly urge the town pass a very proactive, strong version of good cause eviction to see this in the village. I'll finish my sentence very quickly. Basically, what that means is saying that you're defining a small landlord at one unit because that's an exemption, and then also saying that like the height, the limit. So basically, units that are more than 345% of the fair market rents can be exempted and not have that be a lower number. So those are some things that most municipalities, almost all municipalities that have opted into good cause have done, and I strongly urge the town to do so. I think that would give a lot of village tenants a lot of comfort of going into this potential merger. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, June. Thank you. Can I,
Chestnut Valley tenancy, all right.
Wearing the shirt.
Can I talk with my town colleagues for a quick moment right now? I'd love to take a straw poll, because we work really carefully.
You want me to leave?
No, stay, June.
Okay.
We worked very carefully and thoughtfully on the village adopting a good cause law. And I would like to take a straw poll now, because I think whether New Paltz consolidates or not, the town should, as quickly as possible, adopt good cause rental renewal law. And we have a draft, we've circulated it. So if, you know, we're gonna go ahead and proceed with a public hearing and a vote, I mean, I see myself being super supportive and voting in favor of that law. I'd like to take a straw poll. Just curious how anyone else is feeling right now. Do you need to learn more or?
I need to learn more, but
Okay.
I'm here, yes. Like, I just have to read the devil's in the details, so, this is.
We did.
I would, and I do, Tim thought about it and did the work, it's probably okay, but I haven't read it, so, but like, from what you're saying, I'm leaning very towards yes.
I'm happy to stick around afterwards and answer any questions. This is my full-time job. I'm working with this law a lot, so I'm happy to stick around if you do have any questions for me.
I'm leaning towards it as well. I remember when we looked at it the first time, I had a question about you said it before, the like small landlord or.
The small landlord limit.
Yeah,
Do you want me to explain that or do you?
sure. I don't know.
I don't know, okay, so basically, there are the state passed a law, but it gives municipalities room to set some local parameters within that. And basically some exemptions, right? And so small landlords, which is not defined in the state law, are essentially exempt from good cause eviction. And the state law allows that to go all the way up to 10 units. The problem is, if it's any more than 1 unit, it becomes very hard to prove anything. Because landlords often use multiple LLCs to own multiple buildings. And so if you don't, if it's any more than 1 unit, it becomes virtually impossible very quickly to prove how many other units a landlord actually has. And so what most municipalities, I think almost all the municipalities have opted in have done is set the definition of a small landlord at 1 unit. Meaning that if you're a landlord and you own 1 unit, that unit is not covered by good cause eviction. Anything more than that would.
So what about units that are on the person's personal property?
Same thing.
That's a different exemption.
That's-
Yeah, it's a different exemption.
Okay, so if it's a person, so the 80s, the apartments that people put on their own property would be exempt from that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm being way more.
But if,
yes.
but if you own one, but if you own 1 unit, that's not part of your primary.
Yes,
residence.
yes, it's more than 1, essentially. And so,
Because in the town, we have there's been a lot of talk about the dwelling units and trying to add more ADUs to increase the availability. So if
Yes.
you were an owner who had an ADU, would that be counted as a landlord?
how many ADUs?
Just
Yeah, is there a lease?
I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
We only allow one.
So then, yeah, I mean, 1 would still, if you do define small landlords as 1 unit, then that wouldn't be an exemption, right? But if they have any more than that 1 unit, then that is no longer, then they are no longer exempt.
Unless they live on the property.
Unless they live in a-
Yeah.
If they live on the property, they're exempt as well.
Yes, that's a different exemption.
And how many of you live on the property?
I think it's,
So if you have 5
it's a different,
apartments,
it's
how do
maybe
you live
10
on that?
or.
Yeah,
I didn't study for this.
yeah, sorry, I mean,
You have 5 ADUs.
Right.
No, but if you had a multi-use occupancy and you rented one that lived in it.
if you live in an apartment complex, and even though you live in the building, I'm fairly certain, there's not a lot of examples of this, to be honest with you. Most landlords do not even live anywhere near municipalities, but,
In the
yeah.
town, there are some places, like in Flavor, is one building.
Yeah.
1 lot, 3 apartments, they live in one.
I'm fairly certain that would still be good cause eligible, but I think that is worth investigating.
It would depend on the definitions, like within like the code locally, like and how they match with, because this is an opt-in law, so all these exemptions like there's no wiggle room, it's set out by state property
I
law.
thought I read, when I read the law, that if you were a resident, there was a different number to one. I thought it was like 2 or 5.
Yes.
The statewide law allows you to basically set the number of the up.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't
Yeah,
mean to
go for
interrupt
it, please.
So for owner occupied, up to 10 units is
That's what I
acceptable, yes.
Is that one of the local things?
That's not
That's
something
That's good. And the other major example is like how expensive the units are. So if they are over a certain number, then they become exempt. And so we want that number to be really high, essentially. And the number that is along with 340%.
So Kitty, will you share how you're feeling about it?
Yeah, I wish Kate were here, because she's our liaison to our Housing Smart Task Force, but, because I'm sure they are for this, in this case, we would get extra support, but has the U.S. Housing Committee had a chance to weigh in on this?
We have always been in great support.
So I think we have support from our housing representative, and I would join in that support.
I just wanted to share, just the general thought, so you have a.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, I would encourage you to schedule a public hearing, move forward on that. And there are some other people here to speak who are residents and renters and want to speak to their personal experience. So I'd love to give them an opportunity.
Excuse me, Tim, this doesn't have to continue the conversation, but if I could add, that there are additional, at least one that I'm thinking of, which is the percent requirement of affordable housing in a new development, of over 20 units. I would imagine there may even be other additional, affordability laws on the village books that I would request that the town also consider.
So the town has, the town.
Same
has that
percentage?
Affordable housing.
Same
law,
percentage?
But also like, I don't know if it's even applicable, because I don't think the town has zoning that allows for that type of, multi-unit construction.
So then maybe there needs to be an equivalent law that would still have
Yeah.
the requirement, but would match the type of development we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I would,
I
I
think
think
that-
that please, in the context of this good cause eviction consideration, maybe there's like a housing affordability bundle that could be
Yeah.
on the table, that I would want to ask.
Just to
you all to
mirror
do
what
some
the
homework
village has
about.
already done, yeah.
Yeah, that came up in, sorry to throw things off a little bit, but just, I held a great meeting with like village and town, volunteers who are in the different housing smart task forces, our affordable housing board, UAC housing committee, landlord tenant relations, to kind of figure out where everyone was feeling in light of consolidation, because there has been, I'm sure, June, you're not exaggerating when you're saying people are feeling anxious about it, and like, especially in light of last week's public hearing, when repeatedly people were saying like, tenants are gonna vote, like, people have been reaching out, like, what's the point of even voting on consolidation if I don't know if I'm gonna even be able to live here? So, I think it's really good that we brought that up. I think a lot of the advocates want to kind of put together like the list and kind of pass it our way and your way. And that's one cool thing about two people who've been working together for a long time, being on two different boards, because we can kind of really copy paste stuff, and Tim's seen it and whatnot. So I think we can make some real headway,
Yeah, and I think we can, have these discussions and move this forward, and be totally agnostic about whether consolidation happens or not. We should
Yeah.
do this as a town outside the village.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll be here.
Thanks so much. Yeah, anyone else who wanted to come just make any general public comments, come on up. Yeah, come on up.
I thought about bringing it up, my name is Diana, I live in town. And since, Mr. Rogers brought it up, I would like to know if you all here would express your consideration for yay or nay for the town and village to be combined.
Thank you. Yeah, anyone else? Come on up.
Happy to do that.
Yeah, okay. I want to kind of give people chances to finish talking. Come on.
Hello, my name is Jay Portman. I'm here to I know June said a lot and you said a lot about good cause, but I have a lot of friends who live in this town. I lived in this town since I was in third grade. I'm 27 now. Who put a lot of work into this town, into the restaurants, work in the various industries, and have been forced to move out due to the rising costs and the stagnant wages. And I think stuff like good cause eviction could pave the way for future protections for renters moving forward. That was about it. June said pretty much everything I had to say.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. I saw.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Cool. I saw a couple folks who look like they want to come on up. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Dave Hills. I consider myself new to New Paltz. Moved here like 15 years ago. There is some concern I have, and I've been coming here at least for the past 3 months, voicing my concern. And before I really start, this is personal to me. And the reason is personal to me, and I keep on saying it over and over. I'm here to fulfill my civic duty. And what that means to me is, I came here when I was 12 years old. I served in the Marine Corps for 4 years, and it was a very bad situation for me. And at the time that I served, I lost over 243 Marines in one day. And I'm very fortunate to be here, to be alive. I was involved in law enforcement for 37 years. At this current moment, we have 2 officers, Sergeant James Trion and Officer Milton. They had some charges brought up against them, which they were released from those charges. But up to today, they are still on administration leave. And I'm very concerned about that situation. I don't want to, when you use a word, racism or favoritism or whatever, people get very offensive. They get very defensive on when you use those words. I experienced it myself, and and like I said before, I never blame that individual because I understand that they were conditioned in certain to have those behaviors. And the reason I'm saying that, and I said it many times, I remember being in the Marine Corps, being in a hostile situation, people getting killed. When the other patrol came back, and all the Black Marines that was in my unit were moved to one side, and all the white Marines to the other side. And I went up to that individual and I said, yo, those people shooting at us, they don't give a damn. We both have the American flag on. But at that time, that person was so ignorant to what he was doing. And I know, just listening to this, you guys, you elected officials, you have a lot of stuff on your plate. And I thank you for dealing with reconciliation and all the stuff that you guys are dealing with to make this community a better community. This will be all could live in. But I'm going back and saying, I'm still concerned for those 2 officers who are still, they've been clear of all their charges, but they're still under administration leave. I don't know what's going on, and it's very disturbing. It's very, very disturbing. I know you have a lot on your plate, and again, I commend you for the job that you guys are trying to do to make this a better community that we all could live in. But to have those 2 officers still under administration leave after they were clear with all charges, I don't know what's going on.
Am I wrapping up? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben, looks like you're ready for a comment. You're pacing. Get up here.
Yes, yeah. I just wanted to be clear that we're doing good cause.
Yes. Anything you want to talk about? Yeah.
I'll come up and go back again.
Get your steps in.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you all once again. It's a lot easier because Jean gave us that wonderful primer on good cause. I'm here as a tenant within the town, not village, to speak in favor of good cause. I happen to be very fortunate. I live in probably the nicest housing I've ever lived in my life. I do live in an apartment complex. I am very, very fortunate. My apartment complex is run by relatively responsive landlords. When I submit a ticket, they send someone out. They have full-time staff and they fix stuff. Not everyone is that lucky. A lot of people have landlords who use the fact that you don't have a leg to stand on as a reason why they won't fix things. And if you've ever been in that position of having a landlord who just won't fix something because he knows that if you press him, he'll just go, well, then I won't renew you, and out you go. And you have literally no protection against that, which means any realistically enforcing any rules that we have about, like, you need to provide decent housing to your tenant kind of goes out the window until it becomes a really big deal, or you have a particularly savvy person as a tenant who knows how to open authorities. So even in my privileged position of living in a well-run place, if I want to get together with my neighbors and say, hey, we would like to use some common space for something nice like barbecue, or we want to have some lawn furniture, and we want to, talk with the landlords and not worry that if we're the ones raising our hands and saying that we want, to improve space on this place that we spend, oh my goodness, so much money living. I know that if I'm the only one who says, hey, can we have a barbecue? The easy thing for the management to do is to say, well, if no one else is saying that, then let's just get rid of that guy, and then we don't have to deal with this. This is work we don't have to do. And of course, my response to that would be to form a petition. And the reason that won't work is everyone else knows that if they put their name on such a petition, they're vulnerable to being retaliated against.
15 seconds.
Okay, so with my last 15 seconds, I just want to say that I want to be able to fully enjoy the place where I live. I love my community. I appreciate you all being here to help make the community better. And please, when you do pass this, which I'll be back here to see that you do, please set the exemptions at 1 unit. So that the problem of piercing the corporate veil of the landlord who puts each property in a separate LLC become an issue, and the exemption at 345%.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Come on up one at a time before we move on to just board people.
Take a seat and not sit on.
Yeah.
I'm Nate. I'm kind of a transplant to New Paltz. I've only been here for maybe like part of the year. And I'm also going to talk about a good cause, specifically just the concerns about bringing it over as the merger occurs and making sure that's preserved for the whole town. I have somebody I know personally who does not in New Paltz, but in a different town in the Hudson Valley, actually has been recently illegally dehoused. And going through that process, so one of the reasons why it is so illegal is because of tenant protections very similar to good cause. And so even though that situation is dreadful in a lot of ways, it is also good to see that these protections are there as a buttress, not only for them now that they are currently in it, but as a deterrent from that happening to other people that are maybe in more vulnerable positions even than she is. And so just knowing that that sort of protection is currently in the balance as to whether or not it will be carried over is something that I hope is being considered, and I hope there are plans to have that be carried over, as I'm sure, especially in a town like New Paltz, which was I think already mentioned before, but a town that really has built in a lot of ways out of a community that is largely like creatives and artists and all sorts of like business owners and everything from the working class, a class which is increasingly vulnerable as economically speaking, things become harder and harder. It'd be good to see that there is more things protecting people in our less. So I hope that we can plan for that sort of protection, and hopefully even more to be present as we merge things and try to make managing New Paltz easier for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan, you look like you're trying to come up. Come on up.
So I was here mostly to listen to consolidation, but I realized with good cause eviction, I have a few perspectives I think would be helpful. It sounds like everyone is for it, which I'm extremely grateful for. I am a individual who after COVID hit, I had 4 separate leases and 1 sublet with the next like 4 years, and I'm finally in a place. And I've been able to stay there. It's been great. I also work with individuals around Ulster County who are facing eviction, and it's a very different conversation if they're in Kingston or New Paltz or somewhere else. And I'm also speaking to you as someone who, without good cause eviction, would have been homeless a few months ago. So I lost my job because of a traumatic head injury, and I was out of work for probably about 8 months. I didn't have a job, and I was able to get help from social services to cover my rent for what I missed. My landlord, as a response to that, also at the same time, my grandmother broke her spine and was hospitalized at a nursing home. His response was to try to evict me for missing rent, even though the entire town spoke through him. And I had money he should have taken, but he legally wasn't required to. So eventually, after going through the process, making a settlement, he actually ended up trying to evict me anyway. On Christmas Day, I had papers taped to my door. But because I knew good cause eviction existed, I reached out to Landlord Tenant Relations Council. I reached out to the Justice Center of the Hudson Valley because legal services has been working outside of Kingston. And working my ass off, I was able to force them, because their lawyer screwed up in 5 different ways to the point where they were getting reported to the bar, that I was able to make them take this money that I was entitled to as a public benefit. So I'm very grateful good cause eviction is in place, because if not, I would have been where I am trying to prevent people from going, and my grandmother would still be in a nursing home. I also want to ensure that that is not the finish line, because I was almost evicted without good cause, even with the amendment in place. So I'm truly hoping that regardless of consolidation, the work that's happening with the housing boards is amazing. And I hope you can figure out how to help people who are actively in crisis, how to refer them to services, because it's borderline impossible to get someone to answer questions, and it's nearly impossible to get someone to be in court with you. So thank you to the village for having good cause eviction. Thank you for the town to being open for it. And thank you all for your service. I'm very grateful to still be here. So thank you guys.
Thanks, John. All right, anyone else wanting to make a comment tonight? Come on up. If not, don't worry, we're here all the time. Okay. We'll be back here tomorrow. So we already noticed tomorrow, but, I just wanted to, we've been kind of, you know, in the village trying to err on like just doubly, like confirming everything. So I just wanted to make a motion that we're going to do our business and consent agendas on the village end all tomorrow at the special meeting that was noticed.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye, cool. Just covering that. Okay, next, I don't know if you guys felt like you need to do that, but, or if you want to do any of your agenda, or we can just talk about consolidation.
Let's have our joint consolidation talk and then see, in the old days, town board meetings used to go to 10 or 11, but if we feel that we need to reconvene tomorrow, we have no disagreement. We can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, like, I guess I'll like kick things off and, you know, there's 2 things to address. One thing, the postcards keep coming up, and so, we will at some point have to figure out, some sort of money to set aside to be able to do that mailing. And just wanted to say to folks who were hoping that would happen in less than a week, that couldn't happen because we have to approve, you know, budgetary stuff and a lot of stuff goes into doing any kind of mailing, especially when it's 2 governments involved. So, it's not that we're, you know, not doing that task. It just is one of those things that would take a bit of time, and because it is an expense, and all that jazz, it might not be something that can get done that quickly, you know?
We did get a good accounting of how much the town has spent on consolidation. I don't really know how much we've gotten yet from those 2 grants, but it certainly feels like sending out an informational newsletter would be part of that. So, how much are we expecting from the CETC? Was it 90,000?
I think that's really vote. If the vote isn't true, you get reimbursed for 90% of what you spent on.
So, we got $22,000 of reimbursement from some source.
From Craig.
How much of that is left?
Well, that's what we're working on, this Department of State. We want them to look at the work we did last year and this year together.
So right now, we're not anticipating more grant money that could help us pay for this mail. Or are we?
Potentially, but that has nothing to do with the grant money. Right, you're talking about whether you spend money on postcards.
Yeah, Kitty, you're just trying to figure out why is the money needed for these postcards an obstacle to getting the postcards out?
Thank you.
Oh,
And I think maybe we need to go beyond a postcard at this point. I think given the amount of confusion over this thing, we need to actually send out a mailer. That maybe is more explicit than the one pager here. And I think that's not, how do we want to do that? Do we want all 10 of us to work on that? Do we want a mailer committee?
It could be a one-page thing which has basically the dates of the future meetings, well, just the significant dates that are already on the website and have already been distributed lots of times, but if we're talking about a hard copy, it could be a hard copy, one page that lists those and has links. And it has a little summary and then links to, you know.
That's a great idea, but we did hear from people that they don't do social media, right?
Well, it's not social media would be, but you're right, there was a gentleman who said that he didn't have a computer or didn't use a computer. And he knew other people who didn't have computers or use computers, didn't know how to go to a website.
Well, I was thinking maybe the postcard, just say where they can find the hard copies, like the library or any other.
That's a great
we
point.
Discussed, putting placing them in the future.
Yeah.
At this point, I think there are so many questions about the actual document that making people go to the library and page through it in time to come to our final public hearing. I'd like to,
What are you suggesting?
I would like to redo the one pager that's over there based on the questions that we're hearing from people, like where is the financial data? And I'm so, I sent you all an email.
But that's a separate subject. The subject at hand is how do we get this information in a hard copy to people? Because apparently people aren't, the various other means of getting the information isn't working for everyone. So
Yeah.
the question is, how do we get that information to them?
We send a mail.
I think the mailer, I think the hard copy, there's really no other way. You have to either give them thick, 15, 20, 30 pages of documents to everyone, which is impractical. Or you have to give them tell them where to go to see that hard copy. That's the only way you can do it.
Well, we can do that, but I think, if we have a threefold, it's possible for us to say, what is this gonna mean for you? What does it mean if the village dissolves? All of these issues about zoning, just say very quickly. There will be town-wide zoning. That's a question that's come up. That reminds me of a question I wanted to ask, which is when we talk about in the JCA about streamlining the zoning and making it compatible. Does every zoning change? Like if the village wants to adopt the town wetland. If the village wants to adopt the town clearing and grading law. Do they each require a public hearing or do we do it on
Kitty,
that?
just really sorry to interrupt. I really apologize. I respect what you're saying, but you have brought up a really good point, or somebody brought up a really good point about getting these hard copies out to people. So let's close that subject.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
come to a
thank
decision
you.
on that before we move on to some other subject. So I think that the idea of sending out via mail or, I don't think it's probably the
Well,
only
the
way to do
village
it.
has a giant advantage in that you can put this flyer in water bills, right? So that takes care of a significant number of properties.
I
Will
think-
they go out before
Yeah,
June?
So this is my point is like, being able to get this kind of snail mail thing to people in time for the final public hearing just isn't going to work. I wrote our congressman back in January, when I saw just our staff downstairs are constantly dealing with people who get a bill late nowadays, because the postal service has this whole rerouting issue. So with that, on top of just mail in general, if we did a fresh mailer, I still don't think it would get out in time if we got it out the door on Friday, I don't think people will get it. And there is not a water bill mailing between now and Friday, you know, when it would have to go out to get people to that next hearing, so
What it costs the village to mail out the water bills?
I don't have that on top
So.
of I'm not gonna bother Nancy at this hour either, yeah.
So I think we should be clear. I think we decided it's too late to think that we could send something physical mail in order to alert people to the next public hearing.
Yeah, I don't think that's possible.
But I do think it's possible, although I don't know how the budget mechanism would work. I do think it's possible to send a summary document about consolidation that could inform the public on paper, in writing, in a hard form, prior to the referendum vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I also don't think it will address all the questions and all the issues. And, you know, there are 30 pages of financial information available to us. And it won't address all those things, but it might be a one pager that highlights some of the key points and maybe draws people in to want to learn more.
And we can, you know, yeah, exactly. Thank you for clarifying that. So what I'm thinking is if we can just be on the same page that we'll come up with this in time for a vote. And I don't know, if the community can just kind of accept that, like, this timeline isn't one that we made up. It's summer. I definitely didn't make this up, you know, like, it's from the state. There's no changing of these dates that are set forth. So just getting something in the mail, like, we don't have a time machine, so, but we can get people out and information in the whole rest of the process, you know, if it does continue.
And would Benjamin Center be willing to draft that best possible, everything in one page?
Some of this already exists
Yeah.
from me and.
We recognize that.
No. What I mean, some of this exists that it hasn't even been like this week I was working on something like this. There's a flyer that exists that could go up just around town if you want, like on telephone poles, easily enough. I made one of those.
It's not legal.
That's not legal.
You can't put things on telephone.
That's true. You
Well, we
can't-
don't formally
That's true.
endorse it, but you know,
yeah.
if somebody wants to
If
impress
somebody
you all.
we could spread them at the library, put things up like
QR code and.
QR code. But in terms of a sort of the document you're describing, there's a version of that that's being worked on.
Yeah.
And I think it's perfectly appropriate to go out, you know, as a mailer. And while I acknowledge that a lot is rides on a decision that's happening fairly soon, right, with respect to these boards endorsing it, that decision actually, I think, pales in comparison to the decision the community has to make. And if you really want, like, there's a lot of evidence that people pay attention to things much closer to elections. So I think you actually get more bang from your buck in terms of community sort of learning. I understand that stuff doesn't get incorporated into the JCA. I want to acknowledge that. But in terms of like feeling like you want to inform the community, you know, as we get a little closer out of summer into election season, getting them a mailer along the lines of what's being described and allowing them to be as informed as possible is certainly possible.
Okay, I appreciate that, but I have heard from people, and we saw in this week's letter to the editor, that people feel that your one pager is very pro consolidation. So let's just do what I believe the women voters would do, and just say, here are the pros, here are the cons. And just not put our finger on the scale, which
For what it's worth, the document that I put together is just dates, honestly, for this. And if we want to move into stuff that's more substantive for that kind of thing, I think the main thing to do is to direct them to the JCA. And stuff,
I'm sorry, I'm just feeling frustrated that we keep sending people to the JCA and then they keep coming here and saying, we can't find any of the numbers, we can't find any of the. And they do show up, and I've been looking at the JCA, I've been looking at it since it was a dissolution document.
Sure.
And part of what I'm hearing, and what is really frustrating me, which I said before, all of the steering committees meetings when we were just talking about dissolution are completely hidden from the public. I've asked many times if they be made, but I don't know why they're so deep with it. Same thing with this new steering committee, that, you know, I've asked for minutes and don't get them. So people ask who created this, how did this get here? Sean, I see you, and you will have your 15 minutes, but I would like 5, okay? But what we're hearing is that the document itself is obtuse. It is, you're saying 30 pages of financial information. I sent you all an email today saying, I just asked AI, what funding sources, based on your question on Facebook, what funding sources will we not have any longer if the village goes away? And AI, which can make mistakes, so we all need to look at that document more carefully. So basically, there's over $900,000 of village-specific funding that goes away. I need to see where that is, and it's not in the JCA. We need a separate explanation so people can say, okay, where is the parking revenue?
But
And
Judy,
the
the
No,
parking revenue doesn't vanish. Yeah, but you can't keep up with this misinformation campaign that you're insisting
And I'm
on.
not allowed to continue. I will not interrupt you, I promise.
You did before.
No, you interrupted me. So what I would like to go back to is, where is the parking revenue? Where is it gonna go? Is that just gonna be in the hamlet? It's not discussed in the JCA. That's $300,000 that I can't find. So we keep saying, go look at the JCA. I looked at it a lot and I can't find any answers. So I think we need to be much more objective in this mailers that we're gonna send out and just say, there are unanswered questions.
I don't think it should be.
Wait,
Sorry, Sean.
I've had my hand up
Yeah,
5 minutes.
Sean wants to
Yeah,
talk.
okay, so in the beginning of this meeting, you clearly stated all the water problems and that the water problems don't exist. Tim backed it up. I think everyone here at this table understands that if you have a water bill, you pay for the water system, you pay for the infrastructure, you pay for the pipes, you pay for the water, you pay for the sewage. Everyone here at the table, that was explained clearly. 2 people still came up and said they were confused about it. And that so what happens is when people don't like something, when they don't like something, instead of like using good arguments that are strong, they keep repeating the same thing over and over again, even when they're clear, it's clearly explained. You did such a good job of explaining the water system. And still people are, every single time we have this, it's the same thing happens. And what happens is, if our expectation as a board is to have complete transfer of information to everyone at a perfect level, that is an impossible standard. No one can do that. You can't have everyone agree with you. You can't, and even if you tell people the facts, they're gonna conveniently forget them 5 minutes later and still go on with their thing. If we're going to try, if that's our goal, if our goal is to get mailers with this much information to every single person, we're missing the whole entire thing here, okay? This has been going on, I ran on this. You ran on this, Tim ran on this. So this happened 2 years ago, we've been talking about this. The people know about it. And I'm tired of people coming in and saying this is the first they're hearing of it, okay, great. If you go to the town website, there's a big banner that says click here for all the information. So if we're gonna hold ourselves to that crazy standard, we're gonna have a lot of problems. So we're just gonna, it's just throwing, it's not even honest commentary. People hear something that it's very well explained and then they still bring it up. And as a board, we have to be careful to recognize that they're not really asking questions. Someone says they don't know how to click on a link. Okay, okay, like, okay, no, then come to talk to us and we'll walk you through all the stuff. We'll hold your hand. Like, I'm more than welcome to anybody. You can send me an email and I'll meet you. But if that's an actual honest thing.
I'm just gonna agree with you about one thing is, it is a little frustrating when somebody will come up, say something that's not true, and then immediately leave. It's just a little frustrating.
Yes.
It's part of the process.
It is part of the process.
And we can go do that in other meetings, or when we retire.
So, can I, on communications, I mean, it is my background, and I don't get a vote in this, but I'm happy to offer my experience as a communications planner for 40 years with some of the biggest brands and communication companies ever. I deciding how to do communications isn't one thing or other thing. What we need to know is what are the key objectives of the key things. Do we want dates known before the dates happen? That may be very difficult. Okay, what are the dates that we're gonna do? I am offering to set up a communications planning where we identify certain key things that we want to communicate and then identify the channels by which we can communicate them.
a great
Because
idea.
there are not just mailers and
Let's
others.
do that now.
So
Alright.
well, what I will need feedback from everyone is because we have been on all of the channels that the town and the village owns. So we've got owned media that we have built, but those that we own are the ones that you're saying they're not using. The only other way of doing it is paying for it, so paying for media. Or negotiating with some partners. So we cannot, so we can identify some channels that we're prepared to pay, like mail or advertising, radios, whatever, posted on the side of the road, but those will cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to put this communication there. We can do mailers, that will take time. So I'm happy to go through the process of identifying all the channels we have. If anyone has feedback on where they would like to see this information or notices of where to find this information, tell us. We put it in the library, there's posters all around in people's stores. I know there's posters in Market Street, there's other things. But if there are other channels, personally, we've sent stuff out from the Democrats, the 3,000 emails to people in Newport. We've been sending them out through the channels we know. If there are other ones, other organizations who are willing to share these electronic things to their community, then let me know and we'll work out how to plan that.
Thank you. Right now, that send out a press release, right? That's one thing we haven't done. We don't do that. So let's do that for the paper of record, the Freeman.
The press can't cover where our meetings are.
But
It's been very clear in the letters and other things, it's been very clear in the media that we're having these discussions and when the meetings are. We've done rather a good job of getting press coverage.
But that's after the fact. Let's just get a press release into those little news blurbs. I can't remember what they're called, in front of the news briefs.
And then what I'm offering is not deciding what the plan is, putting together a plan that I can get to you next week.
I think that's such a great idea because
Thank you.
what we want is, we want to come, this is not just about this today or next week. This is about a whole, setting up a procedure for moving forward in a thoughtful way that will, we're setting up a standard operating procedure for moving this forward. We're not trying to spend another 20 minutes right now solving, knocking down whatever that's called, the black ball,
Well, I'll volunteer
Thanks,
to write the news brief to get into next week's paper so people know about our next public hearing. After that, I'll
Thank you.
turn it over.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I just need to address something. I'm on the steering committee, and so I take it personally when you say words like hiding and lack of transparency at the last meeting. We were not mandated to share our minutes. I mean, there's nothing secretive. We're not like, finding a place to hide money, which you said in the last meeting. What we are doing is being shown to you at these meetings with copious amounts of information, pages and pages of financials. I mean, that is what is being gathered and talked about, and thoughtful conversation about what happened at the last meeting last week. Scott made us this document with every topic that was brought up and what the response is to that, what the facts are with CBTC, or what's being done to inform the public about consolidation. All of these documents that he showed us today, where are the numbers? This is what we discussed, and then it was shown up there. So none of it is being hidden. It's being shared. And the communication would be so much better if it was, Well, this is the transcript, you're seeing it here.
Are we seeing this?
This information was shared with you today, it's not just document.
And I emailed, everybody has the PDF of the presentation, because I wasn't sure you all, because I know Stevie like reads everything on her phone while we talk, yeah.
Thank you.
If this is the content of what informed that, if this is what happened at your steering committee meetings,
It's not, that's
No.
something else.
what is this?
It's basically my notes on, after watching the previous hearing, what was that?
No, middle school.
Yeah, the middle school hearing, thank you. And what I understood to be, for example, there's a line in there about the voting thing. And that got brought up and I wrote some notes on why everybody gets to vote about it. Yeah, it's just a list of those. That is what
Is
it
there
is.
any reason not to share it with everybody?
No, I shared it, I think I shared it with the steering committee. It's only a couple days old at that.
Well,
It's like 48 hours.
I think the point is that there's I think an incredible effort being made to produce information and share it. And there's there's a little bit of a catch-22 here. There's a lot of information being compiled and shared, and then there's a complaint that there's too much information to go through. It's unclear, we need documents to explain the information that's been presented, because it's too much information. And then those documents have to be prepared, and then it's just like there's series and layers of documents and presentations and explanations, and at some point, I think back to Sean's kind of basic point, which is there's only so much that can be done. And there's only so much that you can reasonably expect any human being to put into this. And even in the blue sky world, you're never going to be able to do everything. So,
Well, and just to be thoughtful about making accusations about the people who share this. I mean, the things I heard about Tim last week blew my mind. I mean, I've only seen somebody be so thoughtful about this town and, about making a town that he grew up in, that we grew up in, become more efficient and be a better place to live. I see that as an intention. I do not, the accusations that were made last week were disgusting, and I just think that as a board member, or as board members, we have a responsibility.
well, I think Alice addressed that tonight, that we need to keep our comments about issues and not personal. And that goes for our responses to the public as well, who can certainly get under our skin. But in the meantime, we're not addressing the questions that
You know why we're not addressing them? Because we're talking about the meta of this process for an additional 45 minutes instead of, let's go ahead and talk about the issues.
Yes.
Great, I'm ready to do that.
That's what.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
There's been a series of questions around revenue and the differential of revenue before and after consolidation that's in the projections. I'm interested in exactly what the difference is in, I'm waiting for Scott because.
I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
In exhibit C2, there's village and town pre-consolidation revenue, that includes appropriations and property tax levy.
Yeah.
And then there's village and town post-consolidation revenue that includes those two categories as well. In appropriations, there's a difference of $700,000 from the village.
Okay.
That before consolidation, the village appropriation figure is 4.3 million, and post-consolidation, it's 3.6 million. I'm interested in where that $700,000 negative difference comes from when we go from an independent village to a consolidated.
It's 750, it should add up to 755, is that right? If I have the right.
You mean the differential?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
calling it 700.
Yeah, okay.
So why is it that the appropriations are $750,000 less pre versus post from the village contribution to the consolidated entity?
That is not an answer I can give you out loud right now.
I think it's an important answer.
Sure,
that
it
we
is
should
an
get.
answer that we have. I have the table right here. It's just
Great.
I can write that.
You can
for
share the table, I'm pretty good.
Well, yeah, the table's been shared and I can share it again, but,
Is it?
it's a little hard for me to.
Your last email from me from 7:05, yeah,
Okay. I wasn't ready to read it at 7:05.
sorry.
But
Yeah,
so
understood.
that's great. And that, I believe, is an example of when folks say there's no financial information, that's not accurate. There's a lot of financial information, but if folks are asking questions of us that get to another layer of these types of information, let's have those conversations at this board.
I'm waiting for those questions, right?
Okay, I have another one.
Your ask is exactly the kind of
Okay.
thing we should.
The
be
second one
discussing.
is, there's also a differential in property tax levy that goes from the pre-consolidated village to the post-consolidated village, and that's exactly from 2.8 million to 2.2 million.
Which table are you at?
Still on C2. I mean, C2, yes.
Which page? Sorry.
C2 is only a one pager, and it is page,
Oh, exhibit C2.
so
Table.
basically, the concept is that when you look at the pre-consolidation village financial revenue sources, they are bigger than the post. And I'm looking to understand what is being lost from pre to post. And is it something that's unrecoverable? Is it something that's a regulation, or is it?
You're doing on revenues.
Yeah.
Okay, so give me a second. I need a second.
And we don't have to answer it now.
Yeah,
But it's I
you'll
think,
get a written answer. For
Great.
sure.
and then the other thing I'd like to share about the financial implications is the transition costs, as outlined in the document, are very specific and I think very conservative. Although I don't have a lot of experience at all the particular line items that they're supposed to pay for. But I think they're very, they seem generous because there's contingency on top of contingency. There's things that say possible other costs, and then there's a 15% contingency and a 25% contingency, right? To get us to that 400 maximum number. In the consolidation document, it reads something like potential to be in the range of, which to me is a very vague statement for something that's been detailed in an extremely conservative and specific way. And then it also only says that there's $50,000 available to pay for this $400,000 transition cost. So I think transition costs have been a topic that many people have brought to our attention. And I think the JCA could address transition costs more effectively by being more clear to say, we project the cost to be in this range, which includes a contingency of X amount. And we anticipate being able to pay for those transition costs through $300,000 from the CETC, the $90,000 that you cited earlier, $50,000 Craig Award. Because I think right now it's a boogie person of this transition cost thing that could be a lot better addressed than the JCA.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's a good way to distill a lot of the comments that we've been hearing, like really asking about those particular numbers. So thank you. Let's hash it out and make it more clear.
So I think my question about, how many public hearings we might be needing, might work into the whole transition issue is, does every piece of town code and the town zoning that is going to be adopted by the new village need its own separate public hearing? Or do they come as a huge mass? How does that?
I'm having a hard time following what you mean by the new village, because it's all after the consolidation, it'll be the town. So do you mean at that point, when there are changes to be made to the zoning, they would be done by local law? You could make multiple changes to zoning in one local law. You don't have to do a separate.
Okay, that's my question. So if the hamlet wants to have a wetlands law and a clearing and grading law and a setback law that's different than they have right now, that would all be in one law that would
It could be if it's also, I mean, you're not supposed to put more than one topic in a local law, but if it's all changes to zoning, you could, you could put that together. Like you couldn't have one local law that covers, garbage and dog control, but within zoning, you could. Okay.
I
Does that
think the
answer
question- I
that?
think the question is similar to the good cause eviction, like once the town has good cause eviction. And then the village gets reorganized into the town, then the village also has good cause eviction.
And so it solves it by doing it now instead of waiting for, and putting it through working groups and all that stuff, just pass it now. That's kind of been like the theory, or like what came up in a lot of the housing justice groups, it's like, just get these protections now, it's not a question for later, it's not a public hearing for later. It just exists and protects the Hamlet people then, yeah. That's a good question though.
Can I-
Yeah.
Talk to you offline, because I'd love to understand the environmental one, because I'm the chair of the town environment, and we've been working with the village, and the environmental laws and protections are slightly different between village and town.
Yeah.
One's more about policy, one's more. So the town laws are much more about land use, and we've been looking at how those two will be aligned and what the role of the environmental committee will be. And so I'd be happy to talk with you then, but we have not found that many opportunities for putting wetland in the village because there's not that much wetland, and what it is protected by policy. So the policy determines wetland protections because there's things like water systems and stuff that you don't have in the village, out in the town. So it's more about policy to protect the environment rather than the land use protection that we have. So there's actually not much overlap for wetland or some of those environmental issues you're talking about, because really they've got policies around that for the whole village. So there may be a few examples, but I think they're small details when we've been looking at that from an environmental standpoint. Does that help?
Yes, I mean, it took us, I don't know, 5 years to pass the town wetlands law. But it's been working pretty well, so I'm assuming
that stays the same, and there are policies in the village that address the environmental protections.
Well, there's also, as an alternative, the town wetlands law has a statement in it that says this law applies only to the town outside the village. You could just take that statement out and then it would apply to everyone. I mean, I don't, and we wouldn't have to have a public hearing on that. Oh, of course, yeah, you have it, because it's a local law. But I'm just saying you wouldn't need to develop a whole new policy.
Well, what's interesting would be to look at whether or not, is this the time, if it does need any kind of provision, so that would be the taking care of motivation. If it,
added to this, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it would come up very often in the village as a practical matter, but.
Well, actually, the housing project for the senior citizen, there was a wetland there. And the developers had to mitigate by putting wetland somewhere else, which I don't know where that new wetland is. Have you think of it?
Can I just change the subject for 1 sec? Sean brought up this idea of having five public comments and then a response to those comments. Which would help, maybe we get more people before they leave. And I don't know if there's some policy, if that's feasible or.
I like that idea.
It'll help correct when someone makes a bold statement and we can explain the law again and again, and I think to wait to the end. I mean, this place was full. And like during public comment. And now it's, so the people who wanted to know the answers are demanding the answers.
You guys are all amazing, by the way.
Yeah, we love you.
I mean,
We're not changing. You're leaving, we're changing our mind.
so, I mean, we do have to remember, there's a lot of other factors, like, justice related with when rooms are packed and not, and whatnot, like, we can't like let our spirits get down or change like operations, just, based on like present audience, because people do watch after the fact and they follow up after the fact and stuff. You know, childcare is insane right now, all that jazz,
They
but
keep sorry,
Please.
just keep, we have a rule, our responses have to be limited to a minute, or, you
yeah.
know, so.
Or just commit to responding to the things that were discussed in the follow-up dialogue of our meetings, as opposed to this other set of conversations that happen in the follow-up dialogue, which shouldn't be taking up the time. We should be here answering the questions that were brought to us over the past 2 hours.
And I also think.
And I don't think we do that very well at all.
Yes, and if we kept it to 5, it's not gonna be personal.
It
Because,
doesn't,
you know, what I
do it
mean,
now,
like,
Bill.
we comment on, like, I feel like if we do it after someone says something ridiculous, it becomes more personal. If we remain silent for 5, and then the 5th person comes in, we can then be like, hey, you know, some stuff, some people like to talk about this kind of thing, and we'd like to, you know, it's a way of making it not a personal attack between getting into an argument with somebody. We can be like, okay, so just so everyone in the room knows, we've talked about the water system a bunch, but if you don't pay a water bill, you don't have to pay for the infrastructure or the water or the sewage. It's all self-funded. And just a quick reminder that, you know, that's it, and then we can move on, because you see it happen, like you mention it, then someone has a different idea that's not.
I think you're both right. I think we should
Yeah.
really try to stay focused on what the purpose of the meeting is.
It's
100%.
It's our responsibility to do that. And Sean, whether we do it in 5 increments or not, I'm just trying to honor what a public hearing is and the law asks us to do. And we should let everybody speak publicly, and then we should sit here with the list like we probably all created during these comments and talk about the things.
Yeah.
So I've spoken about a few, I'm inviting, because that's what we're here to do. And we
Yeah.
haven't spent a lot of time doing it.
I'd love to, so Michael Zeller made a point to highlight, fire district, fire protection.
That's a great one.
And, he was asking a lot of questions about where did these ideas come from? So these ideas were researched. And, so what was commonly believed incorrectly is that a problem with, a reorganization of a town and the village is that you would then have to create a new taxing authority, a new fire district. But the research that I did and the response that I received back from the Department of State attorneys, and I remember her first name is Natasha, and then I also double checked it with the Association of Town Attorneys, is exactly the idea that we have presented, and exactly the idea that I presented and discussed with the fire department members and the public on May 27th of 2025. And it is echoed in our one pager about fire. So what you can do is use the existing fire protection district model, and then you can create a second one that would just serve the former village area, or you could move towards ending up with just one that includes the entire town wide. And then he was asking about like, well, is that, you know, an extra step? And that's exactly the issue, is that, and it's the same thing with water districts too, is that you can't do things like eliminate a district and then have no district for a minute and then create another one. So that is exactly why you have to use the existing fire protection district and then create a second one. And then you could do something like create one that is just the townwide. That is why, you know, you have to follow the order that makes sense. And that is exactly the opinion that we received from the attorney. And then he was also asking questions about, well, who administratively is going to handle this? And it's exactly the same, you know, probably individuals who are currently handling. So currently, the administration of the village fire department is handled by the village staff. So, you know, as we've said 1,000 times in a row, is that the people who are currently employed by the town or the village would continue to keep their jobs. So the administration of the fire department would still be handled by the local government, and it wouldn't be the village employees, it would be town employees who are former village employees. So like this kind of like constantly like, oh, well, there's all this deception, and it's like, no, there's all this research. There's all this like, we've triple checked everything. We've used consultants, we've used attorneys, we've, you know, I think I even shared that message I received from Natasha from the Department of State 2 years ago with Emily.
So thanks,
Like,
Tim.
these things have been discussed and researched and triple checked by consultants, like. This whole like.
Thanks, Tim. And my suggestion, I'm interrupting you purposefully. Because I respect you and I love you. The first part of your answer is perfect. Now the public understands why we proceeded with the fire protection solution in the way we did, and that you had a forum with the department about it. We don't have to comment on the meta of how frustrating it might be for someone to bring another comment about a topic, that we just have to respond with transparency and honesty about the research and the solution and why it exists. And let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point about the meta. That's why I'm definitely guilty of that.
Any other
I have one I'd like to tackle that might be quick and easy. Emily, go ahead.
To add to that, do people know the difference between a fire district and a fire, does it matter?
It's a really lovely one pager.
Okay.
There's some of them on that table right there.
I mean, in one sentence, a fire district has its own government and a fire protection district is run by the town. And so in order to avoid creating a whole nother government in the process of consolidating, the fire protection district avoids that.
Can I also add to that too? I think what's really fascinating about so many of the points that folks raised about what they think is consolidation actually has nothing to do with consolidation. So New Paltz could create a fire district today. They could create a fire district after consolidation. Like, if we choose as a community to create a fire district, we can. And one of the responsibilities would then include having elected fire commissioners. So you're creating a new taxing authority where then you have to find people who want to step up into the role of being an elected fire commissioner, and then they would be responsible for the administrative piece of the fire department, which is currently being done by paid village staff.
Thanks. Can I tackle a quick one?
Yes, please.
One of the public questions was, who are we gonna employ to manage the village? If we have a consolidated town and village, someone's gotta manage the village. And I think that while Kitty brought a great question to the table, which is that maybe in the new consolidated structure, there might need to be more administrative capacity. So a town manager might be a role that we add at some point, or it might get determined in the transition period, even that that's a necessary role. But I think it's important to explain to the person who asked the question, it's not that we would hire someone to take care of the village, because the village will no longer exist. It will be a part of the entire town, and the administrative and executive decision-making would all take place from the town. But the question of like, maybe we're gonna need more person power to make it all work is a good one, and Kitty offered a thought about that. But I think it was important to just refute the idea that we're not gonna hire someone to take care of the village, because that's the kind of counter to the point.
If that's how my question sounded, then
It wasn't your
No, it was
question.
somebody else.
It was a
Uh-huh,
public,
yeah.
it was a public question.
And Michael,
I was offering your suggestion that town manager might be a necessary role over time was a good one.
And it was suggested in the following consolidation. So, you know, I think we just need to think about an extra administrative person, at least for transition.
Yeah.
Michael also brought the issue of, and other people have at the hearing brought up the issue of how boards would handle double the workload. Volunteer boards would handle double, particularly the planning board. I know that Sean had said previously that the ZBA is not overwhelmed. And that in fact, it concerns more.
We have one person right now at the town, at the village, and one person at the town. So there's only one, so that would be,
Right,
so the meeting would go from,
but also that you had brought up that the need is actually more for more volunteers
yeah,
to fill those boards. Those boards. There's another issue I think that I'd throw in there, which is something that I've heard a bunch about, which is that sometimes the two boards are in conflict with each other and they undermine each other's work. So that would be a planning board issue.
like the planning board and the zoning board are undermining each other?
No, two planning boards
Oh,
are at conflict and undermine each other. So there's inefficiencies there that would be addressed. So what I'm hearing is that it's not so much a concern that you're doubling the workload. It's more, it's that there's maybe pluses and minuses, but on the whole, it's probably a plus.
Yeah.
Thanks, Al. As a person who, go ahead, William.
On environmental conservation, the BPD in the village have not had quorum for a long time.
Yeah.
And struggling, we're one person down. There are different expertise, which is, one is policy, one is land use. We have almost the right number of people across both of those boards to cover all of that. And if there are interested people, they can come and apply and be on either, on a board. And we are working closely together at the moment, and with those two organizations.
Yeah.
Two groups.
We're, the CBA has had a full board for exactly 6 months and 10 years. And I was pretty proud of that. I was like hanging my hat on that and felt like a stud until someone moved out and left us all alone, and someone went to Florida, and then someone got, had a kid. So it was like, I was feeling really proud of myself for exactly 6 months. And the town board is a person down. Planning board is a person down.
The town board?
Planning.
And none of the boards have extras. So I should have 2 people in the wing, so I should have 5 plus 2. That happened exactly once for 6 months, like I said, in 10 years. And so we have an issue too in the ZBA and the planning board, assuming it's the same, is that you have to sit, sort of learn how the meetings work and like to ask the right questions. And like, that doesn't happen. If you were so desperate for people, as soon as someone volunteers or is strong-armed into doing something, they're immediately voting, and it's not ideal. Especially when we're talking about important boards like the zoning board, CDA and the planning board, like those boards people should be fighting to get into those boards. No one's fighting for any, if you want to join a board, they'll let you in. And people are like, if I've been doing it for 10 years, I'm ready to be like, oh yeah, I could go. And if I go, there'll be 3 people, and then the democratic process stops. So one of the things that people don't understand about these boards is when you go to 3 people, you need a majority, everyone has to agree. So that means we're no longer democracy, we're dictatorship. And I've canceled I've pushed meetings back because I hate that as a person on board. I've been voted against 4-1, and I'm fine with that. I like democracy. I don't like when I'm in a position where if I say no or I say yes, that democracy ceases to exist. 2-1 means you won, but you don't. And so right now I have 4 people. If one person's absent, we go to tyranny. And, people get sick, people go on vacation, and this is a huge problem. And my board is every board. We just started a police commission. We have 2 volunteers out of 5. People want to volunteer for boards.
If I could offer a perspective to Alan's point, and thank you, Sean, because it's aligned with what you're saying. If there is a valid public question about if we were to combine 2 planning boards into one, how would we move all these projects through one planning board when there's already 2 busy planning boards? And I think it's a good question. One, as a person who's on the village planning board 7 of the last 10 years, one point is that it is, there are many things about the village code that make more projects come to the planning board than need to come to the planning board. Personally, I'm trying to build a very small deck in the back of my house, and I'm on the planning board agenda next week, and it doesn't need to be the case. So one is we've been doing code revision for the past year, slowly, but we have been, because one of the goals of the code revision is to have less projects land with application review, which involves, as you know, a full site plan, a meeting, a public hearing for my little deck. So that's one thing, is we need to do code review because it would lessen the number of projects that need to do site plan review. And secondly, if we were to combine the village and the town, we would have a more robust planning zoning department, which could also expedite projects through the planning boards in ways that today they just move kind of slow. It's like, I don't have exactly the answers to what the workflows would look like that would make it better, but I would imagine if we had more capacity in those departments because of combination, things would move more
I think,
effectively.
Tim, you probably know a lot more than I do about this, but the history of that was that there was a weak building department. And because of that, the planning board said, we need to have authority so these bad things don't happen, because the building department's not taking care of things. But if you have a strong building department, then the planning board could take a backseat and handle their.
And if we have stronger building department, we'd have more revenue, we'd have more inspections, we'd have people following through on things they promised to do to their homes, but then don't finish, and we still have to live with them half-assed. We'd have less tearing down buildings that don't get built. We'd have a lot of things going better. And so our very lean planning zoning boards are part of what is the problem with the number of things that overwhelm the planning boards. And I think that consolidation has the potential to be a solution and to that.
I'm interested to hear that you have to go to the planning board to build it. Yeah, I think that the town, kind of, streamline a lot of that stuff under Paul Brown's leadership. But in any case, I think you found something we really need to think about, and we'll talk about as a public, which is we're gonna have up to 600 new apartments or units or whatever you want to call them pretty soon. And we are going to need more personnel in the building inspection department. So that is something that, as we grow, we need to start planning for. It pays for itself, we hope. I don't know if paying for your escrow for going to the planning board really will pay for the person who has to approve the permit, but it's pretty much self-funding. But I do think that we need to account for the growth that is about to happen. And also the fact that when the village goes away, we also may see the whole process of annexation go away. And that is a big thing for us to think about. I was a big part of the annexation process. I didn't get my way, but what was interesting about it was the entire community could have come, because it was the town and the village, and everybody could have an opinion about whether or not those farm acres should be annexed to the village. When the village goes away, I think that law will go away. And what will happen is that if somebody wants to build a large development on an adjacent property, I think I'm right, then it will just be a matter of going to create a water district. And I think, right, I mean, if the annexation process goes away, if somebody wants to build a new apartment building in the town, outside of the village, now, they would just be, all they need is to be adjacent to another water district.
Well, that's focusing on the water piece of it, but there's also the zoning piece of it. The town zoning would not have allowed that project. So they would have needed a zoning change, which would have been a public process. So I'm not sure how to simply answer that. I think there's different layers to it.
So what would happen under that hypothetical scenario? Annexation goes away. Current town zoning would not have permitted that particular project. And
The project went on.
Or there would be an application to consider rezoning that area. Is this a route we want to go down right now, or getting off?
I'm trying to think about the things that will change under consolidation.
Okay.
One of them is that annexation would go away.
That's it, which is great. Yeah, and then that's less work for the planning.
Well, and it's less source of conflict, because we know that the town board and the village board spent tens of thousands of dollars on that annexation debate and legal fees and other things. And it took a lot of time for the planning board to get it to the place it got, and which then was a sort of a stop sign. So I think that it might not solve it overnight with consolidation, but what it would do is at least align the parties toward one solution, as opposed to having two municipalities fighting with each other over the answer.
Can I bring up another subject really quickly? Because I did
I
hear,
just want to finish
yeah,
that, which is that,
At 10 o'clock, we're gonna stop, guys, just so you
It's a
know,
good idea.
just so you know. Fall asleep. 2 minutes.
Oh,
2-minute warning.
the advantage for me of annexation, which everybody gets to participate. It was long and painful, but in the end, everybody had to saw and step on out.
I was gonna say, I would like to know the cost versus taxes for all these new developments at some point. Understand that, I just don't understand that well. How that you are addressing somebody's comments, and I was like, well, I don't really understand the benefit of the tax revenue versus the adding cost to the town for those things.
Good section. So I think
The
it's a good,
building department generally works, it's like you want it to be cash flow positive.
Yeah.
When you start about taxes over time, so
Yeah.
the seeker review tries to address that. So you could read the seeker materials for any one of those projects and get a good sense of what we're about.
Thank you.
okay, so I think this was good. Are you all full if we adjourn for tonight?
Now, did we adjourn the public hearing at its conclusion?
So I didn't know we had to adjourn it.
Apparently we
We've always
learned that
left them in the hanging. Yeah, I prefer leaving it hanging because we're accepting
Okay.
comments 24/7, 8 days a week in writing until the
I love that.
time, like 5 p.m. on August
I
3rd.
love that.
The next time we'll have in-person comments is the 29th. So motion to adjourn this meeting. All in favor? Aye.
Skip the thing.
Rich.
No, we're doing our business tomorrow.
This is what you have, I want to make sure this is what you have in mind, so that I get you answer things.
Yeah, yeah, I'll leave my office.
This is
Here, let me,
so this non-fire spending. Usually on fire later. I think that you're. The number that